Chapter 4893. The black stone only trembled for a moment, but it didn't do anything else. A spatial entrance appeared in front of him. Zichen was surprised. He walked forward and slowly approached. After approaching, he carefully stretched out his hand and probed forward. A suction force appeared and Zichen disappeared from the ripples. Zichen entered an empty place. Green grass grew on the ground, extending as far as his eyes could see. He stepped on the grass and looked around. This space wasn't large, only a few thousand feet wide. There was no obvious danger, but there were also no visible opportunities. Zichen walked forward, his soul force spreading out. 1. Above his head, a divine rune suddenly appeared. The originally green grass began to change. The surrounding mountains suddenly rose from the ground. Zichen stood on a mountain peak, thunder and lightning flashing above his head. It was as if there were countless thunder dragons hiding in the black clouds, letting out deafening dragon roars. Zichen stood on the mountain peak, looking up at the scene in the sky, his eyes filled with shock. At this moment, he, who was only a step away from the smelting trial realm, felt the might of the heavens, and a feeling of insignificance welled up within him. This strange phenomenon came from the divine rune in the sky. Zichen was shocked. It was just a divine rune, but it actually possessed such a terrifying power. Just as countless bolts of lightning were about to fall, a scene of world destruction was about to appear. A sharp light suddenly appeared in the sky. It was like an immortal sword descending, cutting through the heavens. The scene in the sky shattered. Zichen saw himself standing in a sea of flames, surrounded by countless flame life forms. They roared at the sky, filled with unwillingness and grief. Beneath the flames was a divine rune formed from countless divine seals, layered upon each other. It was extremely complex. These flame life forms were not real life forms, but the products of the divine rune. Each flame life form was filled with a powerful and terrifying aura. Zichen could only feel fear at close range. However, this scene reversed in the next instant. A giant's foot entered this space and descended from the sky. Everywhere it passed, the flame life forms let out unwilling cries and scattered one by one. The divine runes crumbled, and the scene of flames in front of Zichen disappeared. Then, divine runes spread out in the sky, and countless divine weapons flew out, covering the sky and covering the sun. However, there was a saber that flew up into the sky, destroying the rain of swords and tearing apart the divine runes. The following scenes allowed Zichen to see how powerful the divine imprint was. It could change the heavens and the earth, reverse yin and yang, move mountains and move seas. However, no matter how powerful the divine imprint was, there would always be an even more powerful attack that would destroy it all. All the divine inscriptions shattered. Zichen was incomparably shocked. Any one of the divine inscriptions here could easily kill him, and those that could break through the attacks of the divine inscriptions were even more terrifying. He didn't know how powerful a Heaven's Choice Realm cultivator was, but he was sure that even a Heaven's Choice Realm cultivator would die in an instant in this divine glyph world. The scenes finally disappeared, and Zichen saw a brand new scene. This was a whole new world. This world was lush with lush forests, and towering ancient trees could be seen everywhere. In this world, there was a huge city, and countless people lived in the city. These people looked at the sky with different emotions on their faces. Some were nervous, some were angry, some were afraid, some were terrified, and some were even in despair. Looks like the Tao of divine imprints can't be defended anymore. A helpless sigh suddenly sounded, sounding very helpless and helpless. Hearing this voice, everyone's emotions changed, and their eyes were filled with hatred. 1. In the sky, a huge diagram of the divine imprint appeared, covering the entire sky. Dang! A long bell rang, reverberating in this world. Shio, shio, shio! Countless attacks suddenly flew in from the sky, colliding with the divine imprint, and a terrifying shockwave erupted. There was an invasion. The people in the city started to form seals, and one by one, extraordinary divine imprints appeared in their hands. The divine imprints flew into the sky, and entered the divine imprint. Dang! 5 golden bells, one big and four small, suddenly flew into the sky from the city, and the melodious sound of the bells reverberated, flying into the sky. This battle lasted for a long time, and the people in the city tried their best to support the divine imprint, but in the end, they couldn't. The 5 golden bells flew back from the sky, and the divine imprint exploded. A destructive energy fell from the sky into this world, and engulfed the city. In an instant, all life fell, and the city that was originally full of vitality became a city of death. At this moment, a spiritual light flew out, piercing through the sky like a sharp sword. Zichen heard an angry roar from the sky, and then the dim light flew back, and disappeared into the city. The scene disappeared, and Zichen found himself standing in a space. In this space, there were countless divine imprints. What he saw before was like an illusion. However, Zichen knew that it wasn't an illusion, but something that happened in this world many years ago. The auras in that space were all stronger than his perception, but they didn't even see what the enemy was like, and they died in an instant. There were so many experts. Was this world the immortal spell world? Zichen was shocked. Looking around, these divine imprints were all very powerful, and they emitted terrifying fluctuations. They were currently in a sealed state, and hadn't been opened. There's nothing left except for these divine imprints. Since you're here, it means that you're fated with my clan. Take one of these divine imprints and leave. This was the voice of an old man, and it came from the same person who sighed many years ago. Zichen looked around, but he didn't find anyone. This voice should have been left behind many years ago. There were many divine imprints here, but the other party said that he could only take one. Which one should he take? He released his soul power. These divine imprints were all extraordinary, and taking any one of them would be a great disrespect to the other divine imprints. It would be great if he could take all of them, but it was impossible. Zichen didn't think of trying to take all of them, because this was a one-time opportunity, and he might lose his life if he didn't do it well. As for whether it was possible that the other party was testing his courage, and that they might succeed if he took all of them, it wasn't impossible, but it was too small. Zichen didn't have the confidence to take the risk, so he could only choose one of them. Using his soul power, Zichen found a relatively weak divine imprint among the terrifying auras. The reason why he paid attention to this divine imprint was that it was familiar to him. It was very similar to the one he had sensed before, but there were some differences. Zichen walked past the terrifying divine imprints, and came to the side of this inconspicuous divine imprint. He couldn't tell the difference between the two, but he felt that something was wrong. Compared to the other divine imprints that he wasn't familiar with, Zichen felt that this divine imprint might be more useful. This was because he might not be able to understand the other divine imprints, but this was different. He had already come into contact with it, and it was a fragment that could help him break through. After hesitating for a while, Zichen decided to choose this divine imprint. Zichen's hand reached out to grab the divine imprint, but at this moment, the divine imprint in front of Zichen suddenly disappeared. Chapter 48-94. All the divine patterns disappeared, leaving only a ray of light in front of Zichen. Zichen looked at the light in front of him with a strange expression. This spiritual light was round and looked like a ripe fruit, floating quietly in front of him. No matter how he looked at it, it had nothing to do with divine patterns. Whoosh! A ray of light suddenly flew out of the spiritual light and turned into an old man. He looked at Zichen. Zichen had already retreated 30 feet away, his face full of vigilance. Sigh! The old man sighed. Zichen had heard this voice before, and his expression changed again. You should have seen everything since you were able to reach here. The old man said expressionlessly. That's right, I am a remnant spirit left behind. I thought I would never appear again. The old man spoke weakly, clearly lacking in spirit. Zichen stood in place, a little confused. The old man continued. Being able to reach here means that you are fated with the divine patterns and… Suddenly, a strange light flashed in the old man's eyes, and his expression changed. Is it that bad? Are all of you at the same level as the divine patterns? he sighed and continued. Looks like you have never given up. Zichen didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the old man's spirit was quickly recovering, as if vitality was being injected into him again. He seemed to be in high spirits. You found the fruit of Tao, which means that our race shouldn't die out. Young man, what is your name? Zichen. Zichen quickly cupped his fists. Good. Very good. The old man nodded again, and then he reached out with his hand. The only spiritual light here flew towards Zichen's forehead and entered his mind. The fruit of Tao is the foundation of the divine patterns. It can greatly improve your understanding and make you naturally close to divine patterns. Back then, only those with natural spell soul were qualified to have it. It is like a seed that is planted in the heart, waiting to grow into a towering tree in the future. Countless divine pattern knowledge flowed into Zichen's mind, and among them was the divine pattern that could condense fragments that Zichen was familiar with. The name of the divine sigil was First Explanation of the Law of the Tao. While Zichen was absorbing the knowledge of the Tao fruit, the old man was staring at the black stone. He seemed to be reminiscing about the past, lost in thought. After discovering that the black stone was extraordinary, Zichen had been carrying the black stone all the way, just in case. You've absorbed quite well. You don't seem to be any weaker than the law-soul Tao body. Is this the choice of your race? Perhaps this really is an opportunity. The old man nodded. He was quite satisfied with Zichen's performance. The only thing he was dissatisfied with was that his cultivation level was too low. However, Zichen had already obtained the Tao fruit. His cultivation would definitely speed up. In fact, it would be difficult for him to slow down. What he had to do from now on was to live. As he absorbed the Tao fruit, Zichen's soul force also underwent an obvious change. His soul became more condensed, and its quality improved. Even the nature of his soul has changed. Could he be a Dharma soul Tao body left behind by our race? The old man's eyes widened in disbelief. Zichen had actually perfectly absorbed the Tao fruit. In the history of the Tao of divine patterns, only the law-soul Tao body could do so. After a while, Zichen, who had completely refined the Tao fruit, opened his eyes. Countless divine seals flashed across his eyes, and his gaze became extremely sharp. Since you've refined the Tao fruit, it's equivalent to receiving the inheritance of our race. If possible in the future, remember to help our race develop. The old man's expression returned to normal. A glowing divine seal appeared in his hand. This seal is the initial seal of the Tao of divine patterns. Keep it by your side. It will be of great help to your Tao of divine patterns. Zichen received it with both hands as a sign of respect. Other than the Tao fruit, our race also has two supreme treasures. One is the divine pattern sky bell. It has one main and four side bells. The other is the sword of Tao, which is condensed from countless divine patterns. They can greatly increase the combat power of the divine pattern race. Zichen thought of the divine pattern sky bell and the spiritual light that flew out after the destruction of the world. The old man opened his eyes and looked around. His gaze seemed to pierce through space and see what was happening in the outside world. Some ripples appeared in his emotions. His eyes were filled with sadness again, and there was even a hint of sadness. Zichen suddenly thought of something. His expression changed. This place might disappear. He used the word disappear, but he did not say destroy. However, the meaning was similar. The old man seemed to be able to sense it. He nodded. This world is already broken and incomplete. It's only a matter of time before it disappears. While lamenting, he also felt somewhat fortunate. Fortunately, Zichen had arrived and allowed the Tao of divine patterns to have an inheritor. Otherwise, the Tao of divine patterns would really disappear in the long river of history. Why have you been holding on to it? The old man looked at the black stone in Zichen's hand. I picked it up. I don't know what it's for. Just in case. Zichen smiled awkwardly and hurriedly put it away. The old man was slightly stunned. Then, he nodded and did not say anything else. The old man waved his hand, and a door of light appeared beside him. Zichen was somewhat puzzled. The old man explained. This is the underground world created by the Tao of divine patterns. There should be some things left behind. Go and see what you can take away. Zichen noticed that the old man's body was starting to turn illusory, and the space around him was no longer stable. For a moment, he also became sad. Originally, I was just a remnant soul. There was nothing to pity. However, after seeing you, I once again have hope. Back then, I left behind these things in despair. Today, it seems that I was right. The old man waved his hand. Remember, live on. Don't let the Tao of divine patterns disappear. A surge of energy landed on Zichen, pushing him into the door of light. The old man and the space around him disappeared. The old man did not tell Zichen why this world had become like this. He did not tell him who his terrifying enemy was. He did not ask him to take on the Tao of divine patterns to seek revenge, nor did he give him any pressure. Instead, he allowed him to live on. Even though Zichen had seen countless parting of life and death, he still felt sad. He did not know where that space was, so he could only turn around and bow respectfully. The sound of a bell suddenly rang out, causing ripples. It went in. Quick, stop it! Get lost, it's mine! Someone was shouting loudly. Apparently, they were fighting for something. The powerful aura gave Zichen quite a bit of pressure. Then, he realized that he had come to the underground. This was the place where Helen had advised him not to enter. Kid, it's really fate to meet you here. A laugh came from the side. Great fate. Zichen turned his head and saw Lux not far away. Lux's eyes were filled with obvious killing intent. Shwa! Zichen did not waste time with Lux. He directly flew into the distance because he saw Helen and the others. They were not in good condition. Still want to run? Do you think you can escape? Lux laughed mockingly. He followed behind. His cultivation level was far higher than Zichen's, but he was not in a hurry to kill. He knew where Zichen was going. I already said that if I see you again, I won't be polite anymore. Why don't you believe me? Piessa looked at Helen, who was lying on the ground. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You don't believe me? Or you think I can't do it? Behind Piessa stood 3 people with cold expressions. Everyone in Helen's team was injured. Piessa, have you forgotten what happened back then? Alva glared at him. What happened back then? Piessa laughed. You were weak back then, and you are still weak now. Speaking of which, Alva, I can't even be bothered to recruit someone like you. Big Beard and Luo Xiao, you two can consider joining my team. You won't have to die today. In your dreams. The injured Big Beard replied coldly. Don't even think about it. This was Luo Zhao's attitude. Piessa smiled faintly. Not bad, you're courageous. But soon, another courageous one will be buried with you. He turned his head and looked into the distance. Zichen had turned into a ray of light and was approaching. Zichen, why are you here again? Seeing Zichen, Alva grew anxious. Zichen smiled helplessly. I accidentally came in. He walked towards Helen. A cold light flashed through Piessa's eyes. Zichen walked past Kallio. Kallio suddenly took out a short sword and stabbed towards Zichen's back. Chapter 4895. Kallio had suddenly launched a sneak attack on Zichen, and it was a fatal one at that. Such a scene was simply too sudden. While everyone was still in a daze, Zichen seemed to have sensed it, and easily dodged it with a sidestep. Under such an unexpected situation, no one would be able to react in time unless they had anticipated it. Rax, who was slowly catching up from behind, had a look of astonishment in his eyes when he saw this scene. Piessa was also surprised. What's going on? Kallio, what are you doing? Big Beard's face was full of anger. He quickly pulled Zichen behind him and pushed Kallio. Kallio's body slid back until he was 30 meters away. Kallio, what are you doing? Helen stood up as well. Injured, she glared at Kallio in disbelief. The others in the team also looked at Kallio in confusion. They were all in the same team and shouldn't have any conflicts with Zichen. Why would he attack Zichen? What made them even more confused was that Zichen seemed to have anticipated this and dodged in advance, causing Kallio's sneak attack to miss. Kallio ignored the others and stared at Zichen. Why? Why are you on guard against me? The others were also confused and wanted to know what Zichen was thinking. Zichen looked at Kallio. The shard is very precious. No matter how unambitious you are, you wouldn't just leave it in your room. You suspect me because of this? I did go to get the shard. Kallio felt a bit wronged. After they left, Alva had asked him what he had done when he returned. I believe that, but the shard you took was definitely not the one we got before. It must have been given to you by Rax, right? You didn't go back to get the shard, but to listen to Rax's persuasion on how to kill me. Zichen smiled coldly and said, When you came back with the fragment, you glanced at me, and the look in your eyes was clearly different from before. During the rest of the journey, you paid attention to me a few times, and the look in your eyes was also somewhat strange. When we reached the outskirts of the city, many people had already arrived. Rax's team had also arrived, but he was the only one who hadn't. He came late, and when he saw me in the crowd, he showed a proud expression. No one had expected that Zichen would discover so many details. They were all stunned for a moment. Kallio said unwillingly, You're suspecting me because of this? I'm used to being cautious, so when I sensed that something was wrong, I became more careful and deliberately guarded against you. Just now, it was just a small test. I didn't expect you to be so impatient and attack me. Earlier, Zichen had purposely walked towards Kallio's side to lure him in and verify his own suspicions. Of course, Zichen hoped that he was wrong, but unfortunately, he was right. If you had calmed down and waited a little longer, perhaps my doubts would have been dispelled. Kid, I've underestimated you. When Rax heard this from behind, he was also shocked. You're so meticulous. It would be a pity to kill you. I'll give you one more chance. Cooperate with us and work for us, and I'll spare your life. Beside him, Pisa also nodded and said, I agree with his words. Rather than die here for nothing, why don't you follow us and create a glorious future that no one has ever seen before? When that time comes, you'll be a pioneer. How glorious will that be? A glowing jade plate appeared in his hand. You should be familiar with this, right? It's specifically used to target the soul. It can be used to refine the soul multiple times. When the time comes, it'll be like reading memories. We'll know what we want to know. That's why my patience is limited. If you don't want your soul to be controlled by us, make your decision quickly. Piessa raised the jade plate in his hand. From now on, it's up to you to live like a human, or either. The others looked at Zichen nervously. You! Zichen coldly smiled. However, before he could finish his sentence, a long blade appeared behind him and pierced into his chest with a puff sound. Then, a destructive aura rushed into Zichen's consciousness, forcefully destroying Zichen's soul. Such a scene stunned everyone. They were all waiting for Zichen's reply. Who would have thought that it would turn out like this? Piessa laughed. You want to live like a human, but I won't give you that chance. Compared to you, it's easier for me to use you as a human. Helen, look at your team. What kind of people did you recruit? I managed to turn 2 of them over so easily. Standing behind Zichen was Kem. He suddenly launched a destructive attack on Zichen. There was no call for help. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zichen! Alva yelled. Boom! Zichen stomped his feet. Suddenly, a large flame appeared under his feet. It was like lava, gushing out. A terrifying aura engulfed the surroundings. Kem was shocked and immediately retreated. He pulled his long knife out of Zichen's chest. Zichen fell into the flames. His body was engulfed in flames. Why are you running? Don't let him die. I have use for his soul. Piessa shouted, glaring at Kem, who was retreating. The sudden appearance of the flames was too terrifying. Kem could not say anything. Facing Piessa's questioning, he could only brace himself and move forward. At this moment, a fire beast suddenly pounced at him. Kem swung his knife, and the fire beast was split into two. However, after this fire beast dispersed, several more fire beasts appeared in their field of vision. There were even more fire beasts in front of him. He could not see Zichen at all. No matter how unwilling Kem was, he had no choice but to back off. This was because Luo Xiao was charging at him. He flashed a few times and arrived in front of Pieser. Kaleo was already there. Helen, Luo Xiao, Big Beard, the Chien brothers, and Alva stood together. Between the two sides, there was a terrifying flame burning fiercely. No one knew how these flames appeared, and why they appeared so cleverly. Pieser's expression was terrible. The flame had ruined his plan. That guy is definitely dead. His soul is useless. Kill the others and let's go. Pieser was furious. He was in a bad mood. At this moment, the flame in front of him suddenly shook. Zichen, who should have died in the flame, suddenly appeared. Those terrifying flames actually circled around him after he appeared, unable to harm him in the slightest. Today, none of you will leave! Zichen, who was standing in the middle of the flames, looked like a demon. Boom! Chapter 4896. The flames spread quickly, forcing Alva and the others to retreat. They looked at Zichen's back in the flames, feeling like he was a stranger. There was even a trace of worry in their eyes. Zichen, who should have been dead, was suddenly controlling the flames. This made them wonder if Zichen's body had been forcibly taken over by some other existence. Perhaps the real Zichen was already dead. Right at this moment, a powerful force suddenly appeared, sweeping up their bodies and flying them out of the sea of flames. They landed steadily on the ground, unharmed. Looking ahead, Pieser's group was already enveloped in flames. His body hasn't been taken over. He's still Zichen, still the same old Zichen. Alva shouted excitedly. If he'd been possessed by a flaming demon, there was no way he could have saved them. The others were also excited. But soon, a puzzled thought emerged. Why could Zichen control the flames here? After all, his cultivation level was low. He hadn't even reached the trial realm yet. Unfortunately, Zichen was standing in the center of the flames and couldn't answer their questions. This is the time Zichen bought for us. Everyone heal first, said Helen. Heal first. Only then did everyone realize that they could take advantage of this rare opportunity to heal their injuries. Earlier, they'd all been injured. If Zichen hadn't appeared, they would have been killed by Pieser. At this moment, Zichen was also healing his wounds within the flames, refining piece after piece of shrapnel. The reason he dared to come and test Kaleo when he'd seen Helen and the others in danger was because he had absolute confidence in controlling the divine glyphs here. But even Kem had betrayed him. This was beyond his expectations. After refining the fruit of Tao, Zichen looked around. This place had long since become different. To others the ground was flat, but to him, it was filled with runes. As far as the eye could see, there were formation patterns everywhere. The earth, the sky, the mountains, they were all formed by runes. As the inheritor of the fruit of Tao, Zichen could only be considered a beginner. It was impossible for him to form so many runes, but this didn't stop him from activating them. Boom! The flames were raging, and the earth was collapsing. This place had become a place of raging flames. Countless fire beasts emerged from the ground and pounced on the life forms they sensed. Everyone was trying their best to defend against the beasts. However, there were too many of them and they were too strong. For a moment, everyone was trapped. Damn it, how did this happen? Not only were the others in trouble, even Pieser was in trouble. He attacked one after another, killing the nearby fire beasts. But soon more fire beasts appeared. Wherever there was fire, the fire beasts would never be extinguished. Seeing that the number of fire beasts was increasing, Pieser had no choice but to take out the golden bell from before. He didn't know if it would be of any use, so he started shaking it. Clang! As the bell rang, layers of runes spread out like rain. Wherever the runes passed, the flames disappeared. The fire beasts in the flames also disappeared. A spacious area appeared, and Zichen's expression couldn't help but change. This golden bell was indeed a supreme treasure of the Tao of divine patterns. Naturally, it released countless ripples of runes to break the formation. As a result, it was much more difficult to defeat everyone in one go. Piessa was stunned at first. He didn't expect the golden bell to be so powerful. But then, a smile appeared on his face. He looked into the depths of the flames, his eyes full of killing intent. Yes, he's coming this way. Zichen sensed Piessa's approach and immediately retreated. During this time, more fire beasts ran in this direction. As the bell rang, layers of runes to break the formation surged, opening a path for Piessa. Piessa moved forward. He wanted to find Zichen. At this moment, a scream sounded. It was from the people he had brought with him. Then, cries of alarm sounded from both sides. This made Piessa hesitate. Seeing that more and more fire beasts were gathering, he could only give up on looking for Zichen. Then, he followed the sound and went to rescue his companions under the guidance of the golden bell. One by one, his companions were rescued by him. Even Kaleo and Kem were brought out by him. When they came out, besides Piessa, the others looked very pale. Their auras were weak. If Piessa hadn't saved them in time, they might have died in there. For a moment, everyone's face was filled with fear. Zichen stood in the flames and looked at the people outside indifferently. He didn't want to let anyone go, but he didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to kill anyone. The golden bell in Piessa's hand was a supreme treasure of the Tao of divine patterns. It could naturally suppress divine patterns. He had to get it. Now, it was up to whether Piessa would come in again. Piessa stood outside the flames, his expression changing. He seemed to be conflicted. At this moment, the bell rang again. Piessa's expression changed. He said, "Let's go," and left with his people. Helen and the others saw Piessa and the others leave from the other side of the flames. "I wonder how Zichen is doing," Alva muttered. The flames in front of them still hadn't disappeared. Zichen sat cross-legged in the flames. There was probably no other place safer than here. He needed to recover from his injuries first. It was depressing. He hadn't been here for long, but he had already been seriously injured twice. Fortunately, there were fragments here to help him recover. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Under the effects of the fragments, Zichen's injuries were quickly recovering. The divine pattern from before was slowly exhausting its power. The flames disappeared, and Zichen's figure appeared. Helen and the others didn't leave. They were still waiting here. Because they had gone in earlier, they had obtained fragments of higher quality than Zichen's. Therefore, their injuries recovered faster. However, everyone's expressions weren't very good. The original team of 9 was now down to 7. The betrayal of the two had made everyone feel very uncomfortable. Looking at Zichen, they didn't know what to say. Even some of them had started to harbor ill feelings towards each other. If things went wrong, there might be a third betrayer. There should be many good things here. We can continue forward. Zichen walked closer and spoke first to ease everyone's awkwardness. Everyone looked at Helen. Helen looked at Zichen and asked, "How can you control the flames here? These flames are divine patterns." "I just happen to comprehend some of them," Zichen explained simply. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he didn't tell the complete truth. Helen nodded and said, "You can only control this one?" "I can control some." He guessed why Helen asked this question. Chapter 4897. Helen's words implied that she was suspicious of everyone else in the team. Everyone was depressed, but they couldn't say anything. After all, there were already 2 traitors in their team of 9. What if they appeared again? Although this wasn't a permanent solution, neither Helen nor Zichen had any other ideas. Moreover, they knew that Zichen was being careful. He definitely wouldn't reveal any flaws, so it was better for him not to return for the time being. Moreover, it was indeed more convenient for Zichen to go alone. After telling them to be careful, Zichen flew into the depths of the forest. He could clearly see all the divine inscriptions along the way. Bells rang in the depths of the forest. Someone must have discovered something. By the time Zichen reached the depths of the forest, the battle had already erupted. Many divine inscriptions had been activated, and the battle was extremely intense. Among them, the 4 golden bells were particularly eye-catching, because they had an absolute suppressive effect on divine inscriptions. Zichen didn't participate. Instead, he circled around the battlefield and flew deeper into the forest. "Look, Zichen!" Kaleo saw Zichen in the distance, and gave everyone a warning. "Rax, take the others and follow him. I'll be right there." Pieser, who was holding a golden bell and deciphering divine inscriptions, glanced in the direction Zichen had left. Rax nodded and beckoned the team forward. There were more than 10 people in his team, and they were all experts. Zichen, who had entered the depths of the forest, sensed Rax and the others tailing him. He didn't pay them any mind and arrived at a flat area. He lightly stomped his foot, and the space in front of him rippled. A door of light appeared, and Zichen walked in. The others who followed closely behind him were all amazed. They imitated Zichen's stomp. Boom! The earth trembled, and a divine inscription was activated. Spikes grew out of the ground like swords. Everyone was shocked, and they immediately soared into the sky. Whoosh! 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 The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and those earth spikes followed closely behind. In that space, Zichen saw a shining fragment. Compared to the ones he had obtained before, this fragment was complete. From afar, it looked like a real Xingqian. If the fragments from before were to be compared to medicinal pills, then this one could be said to be a higher-grade medicinal pill. It could bring life and death back to life. Even Zichen, who possessed a Dao fruit, felt a sense of danger as he was surrounded by divine runes. He took out the divine seal that the old man had given him and activated it. Like a seal, the divine seal temporarily stopped working. Zichen's figure flickered as he quickly approached and took away the complete fragment. When he returned to his original position, the luster of the divine seal had dimmed. Zichen put away the divine seal and headed in the next direction. It was difficult for others to see the divine seal, but Zichen seemed to have a pair of see-through eyes. Not only could he see the divine seal, but he also knew what kind of divine seal it was. In this place, it was as if he was walking in his own backyard. After walking out of 3 divine seals, Lux and the others had already disappeared. Dong! 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 Bells rang out continuously, and layers of ripples surged out. The divine seals behind Zichen appeared one by one, and then quickly disappeared. It was not Pieser who had arrived, but a middle-aged man. He did not discover anything else from the divine seal, as if someone had beaten him to it. He looked at Zichen, who was in front of him. Zichen looked at him warily. "It's you?" the middle-aged man said, his eyes flashing coldly. "What?" Zichen was puzzled. "You were the one who took the things inside?" the middle-aged man asked again, but there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Zichen retreated and entered a ripple. The middle-aged man's expression changed. "Solomon, this guy is strange. He seems to be able to ignore the seals, and even control them." Just then, a voice came from behind. Pieser had arrived, holding the golden bell. Unfortunately, he was too late. Zichen had already disappeared. "Oh, could it be that he has some kind of secret treasure?" Solomon's eyes lit up. He glanced at Pieser, then charged forward. As he neared the place where Zichen had disappeared, he activated the golden bell. Ripples of seal breaking surged out, and a divine seal appeared on the ground. Solomon laughed disdainfully, and the golden bell in his hand vibrated again. Just then, the ground began to shake, and the flat ground became a mountain range. He was in the middle of the mountain range, as if he had lost the ability to fly. "Humph!" he snorted coldly, and the golden bell stirred up ripples. Wherever the ripples passed, the mountains disappeared one by one. He forcibly opened a path forward. Dong! 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 The bell behind Zichen continued to ring. The four people were rapidly approaching. After all, they could ignore all the divine seals and walk at the front. 1. In the air above Pieser's head, an enormous divine seal formation appeared. Countless rays of sword light descended from the sky, shooting towards him. There was a sharp whistle in the air, and the entire space seemed to be torn apart by the sword light. This attack seemed powerful, but in front of Pieser, it was nothing. The golden bell shook, and all the sword light disappeared. Kid, just wait for your death. Pieser glanced into the depths, a cold killing intent flashing in his eyes. Zichen walked past one restriction after another, obtaining many complete energy fragments. As long as there was a divine imprint that was still in existence, Zichen would be able to easily obtain it. These things were good, but they were not what Zichen truly wanted. At this moment, he was looking for something called the Divine Seal Fruit. It was somewhat similar to the Divine Seal Dao fruit, but its grade was much lower. That was what Zichen desperately needed. Finally, after passing through one seal after another, he saw the Divine Seal Fruit. It was like a complete law, quietly floating above the runes. As the runes revolved, the power of law from all directions was attracted to the runes, finally gathering at the center of the fruit. Its function was similar to the divine seal fragments in the outside world, but unlike those fragments, the law inside was complete. Zichen used a strange footwork, dodging danger after danger. He quickly approached and grabbed the fruit. In the next instant, he unhesitatingly swallowed the fruit into his stomach. It was like a complete law was evolving in his body. Zichen saw the process of the great Tao extending. In an instant, he entered a meditative state. Countless laws flashed before his eyes. This was the evolution of the great Tao. When the last law disappeared, Zichen's consciousness returned. At this moment, he felt the changes in his body. He had advanced. He had truly reached the divine seal realm. Although this was only a transitional realm, Zichen could clearly feel his own strength. Chapter 4898. As soon as he appeared, Pieser sensed the change in Zichen's cultivation level. His expression changed. You actually broke through. Zichen smiled faintly. He took a step back and disappeared. Where do you think you're going? Pieser chased after him with the golden bell. After breaking through the runes, he didn't discover Zichen. At this moment, Zichen had already stepped into another rune. Rays of light flowed under his feet like a teleportation array. Zichen disappeared. When he reappeared, he was in the central region from the deepest region. Pieser didn't understand runes. Even with the golden bell, he could only destroy them. Zichen was different. He could use the rune array here. There were still some runes here that hadn't been discovered. After all, Zichen could only choose one path. But in this huge space, runes were everywhere. Zichen moved through the runes. He was looking for someone. Not long after, Zichen found Helen's group, as well as Rax's group. His team had already merged with Pieser's. Only Pieser had gone into the depths. The others were here to find opportunities. At the same time, they were also tasked with killing Helen's team. In this team, there were 2 high-realm cultivators who were teaming up to fight Helen. With the advantage in numbers, the situation was very unfavorable for Helen's team. Zichen directly activated a rune. The 2 sides were instantly enveloped in a hurricane. Within the hurricane, black air currents raged, carrying a destructive aura. This scene caused everyone's expression to change. They all retreated. Just then, several rays of light suddenly flew out of the black air currents. They landed on Alva and the others, forcibly bringing them out. Alva and the others didn't have the ability to resist the runes. Helen changed her position several times, obliterating the rays of light. Boss, it's me. You guys retreat first. Zichen had to transmit his voice again. Only then did he bring Helen out. As for the others, including Kaleo and Kem, they were still in the hurricane. Helen and the others gathered together. Zichen walked out of the darkness and pointed in a certain direction. If we go this way, we'll find something. Helen nodded, while Alva and the others expressed their gratitude. Speaking of which, Zichen had saved them once again. Let's go. Helen was very decisive. She had guessed what Zichen was going to do, so she signaled everyone to leave quickly. The others also guessed Zichen's plan and looked at the storm, where Kenbi and Kaleo were doing their best to resist. In the end, everyone shook their heads and didn't say anything. Everyone had to pay the price for their mistakes. In a place like this, the price of a mistake could be death. After flying for more than 10 miles, they heard an even louder commotion coming from behind them. When he turned around, he saw that the stormy land was completely enveloped by divine inscriptions. There were divine inscriptions on the ground and in the sky. A terrifying aura gushed out as the two divine inscriptions merged together, transforming into a gigantic millstone. Everyone within the formation was trapped within the millstone. In the next moment, the millstone began to rotate. Every time it rotated, a terrifying aura would spread. Mournful screams sounded. Wherever the formation passed, one trial realm cultivator after another had their bodies destroyed, followed by their souls. Kenbi held a defensive item in his hand. At this moment, his eyes were filled with terror. It was as if he had been sealed in a space, and could only passively accept the arrangement of fate. As the powerful aura approached, his defense was instantly destroyed. Then, his body was crushed by the terrifying energy, and instantly turned into dust. The soul that had just escaped dissipated as the millstone rotated again. Next was Kaleo. He only lasted a few breaths longer than Kenbi before he died within the formation. With such a huge commotion, many people who were searching for treasures nearby heard it. When they turned around, everyone's face was filled with fear. Was this still the little guy who had been wandering outside the city for a long time and didn't dare to come in? No one came to stop them. In this place, life and death were up to fate. Let's go. Don't look anymore. Helen retracted her gaze and flew into the distance. Luo Xiao and the others also followed. Alva sighed. Why did they have to do this? Soon, the screams behind them could no longer be heard. It wasn't because they were far away, but because everyone had died. Even the two trial realm cultivators who had teamed up to fight Helen, Lax, had also died. The light of the formation disappeared. Zichen stood in place. There was nothing in front of him other than the turbulent energy. The weapons of those people had been completely destroyed by the formation. Nothing was left. This was the terror of the divine inscriptions, the Tao of divine inscriptions. But at this moment, what Zichen couldn't understand was that even such a powerful divine inscriptionist clan had actually been annihilated. Then how powerful was the enemy? Zichen, I want you dead! Just as Zichen was distracted, Piesa ran out from the depths. He felt the aura of his companions disappear one by one. He started to turn back, but he was still a step too late. Zichen looked at Piesa and gave him the middle finger. In the distance, a sword light as large as a mountain shot into the sky, piercing towards Piesa. This sudden change caused Piesa's expression to change greatly. His body instantly rose into the air, and at the same time, he pointed the golden bell in his hand downwards. Dong! Layers of ripples surged, and the mountain that flew out of the ground dissipated. The golden bell was a supreme treasure of the Tao of runes. It could suppress all runes. If Zichen had one now, it could greatly increase the power of these runes. But in the hands of the enemy, it could destroy all rune attacks. Swish! 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 Suddenly, Zichen frowned and looked into the distance. The other three people with the golden bells had actually turned back. Solomon, you all saw it. He must have a supreme treasure on him. Let's work together to kill him, Piesa said coldly. The other three nodded. They had seen the previous scene with their own eyes. In the outside world, any one of them could easily kill Zichen. But in the rune lands, Zichen had the advantage of time and place. He didn't fear the four of them. In fact, if they didn't have the golden bell, Zichen could have killed them in an instant. The four of them surrounded Zichen, and he began to retreat. During this time, one rune after another was activated. Countless runes appeared, releasing a terrifying aura. But with the four of them working together, there wasn't a single rune that couldn't be destroyed by the golden bell. Zichun was forced into a corner, and could only retreat continuously. He even had thoughts of leaving this place. At this moment, he summoned another rune. This one came from the sky, and looked like a fortress. But as soon as it appeared, it was destroyed by the sound of the bell. Chapter 48-99. Zichun, who had retreated far away, noticed the scene in the sky and his expression changed. Is this the inextinguishable rune? In the Tao of Divine Runes, there were many terrifying divine runes. Among them, there was a famous inextinguishable rune. As long as the foundation of the divine rune was not broken, the divine rune itself would not disappear. The golden bell in Pieser's hand rippled, and the divine rune castle was destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye. But in the next moment, when the inextinguishable rune castle disappeared, it returned to normal. The four of them also noticed this, and their faces showed strange expressions. In the distance, Zichen's expression changed drastically. Apart from being powerful, the inextinguishable rune was also used to store important items. Only by grasping the correct method could one enter it. It was impossible to force one's way unless one had absolute power. Could it be that the golden bell is inside? The golden bell was divided into one large and four small ones, one main and four auxiliary ones. The four of them had only obtained the auxiliary ones, and the main one had burrowed underground. Could it be that it was hiding here? Zichun no longer retreated, and instead looked up at the sky. Piesa and the other three also stopped attacking him, and stopped around the inextinguishable rune. Kid, what's inside? Piesa glanced at Zichun, and casually asked, not expecting Zichun to answer. Who knew that at this moment Zichun would smile and say, Of course it's that large golden bell. When the four heard this, their eyes lit up. Their small bells were already so powerful in this place. Once they obtained the largest one, wouldn't they be able to turn the world upside down? Piesa glanced at the three of them, and found that their emotions were fluctuating. Obviously, they all wanted to get something good out of it. Everyone, why don't we work together to get rid of that kid first? Piesa suddenly suggested. But this time, not everyone agreed. Two of them looked hesitant. It was not that they did not want to kill Zichun, but that Zichun was very difficult to kill. Chasing after him would only waste everyone's time. Let's open this place first, Solomon said after thinking for a while. Piesa glanced at Zichun. Kid, we're not going to kill you. Why aren't you scramming? Zichun said. Don't worry. I also want to see if the golden bell is inside. Besides, each of you already have one. Wouldn't it be great if you gave me one more? Piesa was stunned. This brat was really audacious. He didn't even weigh his own weight. Even if he really gave it to him, would he be able to keep it? Attack! A man in a long robe on the left didn't want to waste any more time. Piesa retracted his gaze. The four of them joined forces, and the sound of the bell rang out, forming a ripple that was even more terrifying than before. Zichun stood in the distance, watching. Although his expression seemed relaxed, he was actually extremely nervous. If the four of them joined forces and broke the inextinguishable divine rune, they would definitely be able to obtain the treasures inside. Right now, he was very sure that the biggest golden bell was inside. However, the four of them were extremely powerful, so he didn't dare to approach them. Sure enough, under the superposition of the four ripples, more than half of the inextinguishable divine rune was destroyed. It looked like it would shatter with another wave. Seeing this scene, Zichun was actually relieved. As long as such an item wasn't destroyed in one go, it would never be opened. Knowing that the four of them couldn't open this place, Zichun was thinking of a way to enter and take the golden bell. However, from the looks of it, it should be impossible. Wherever the ripples passed, the inextinguishable divine rune returned to normal. Piesa's face was cold as he said, Everyone, attack with all your might. Let's try again. The four of them activated the golden bell again. However, no matter how much force they used, There was a limit to the number of ripples on the golden bell. This time, they returned without success. Piessa said, "Everyone, cooperate with the golden bell and attack with all your might." Zichen laughed when he heard this. This was going to be interesting. The four of them shook the golden bell in the air. As the ripples appeared, the four of them attacked with all their might. They wanted to break the inextinguishable divine rune in one go. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emerged from the inextinguishable divine rune. This aura instantly fell on the four of them, directly sending them flying. Zichen felt a little regretful. If that attack had been a little stronger, it would have directly annihilated the four of them, and he would have been able to take advantage of it. Moreover, the four of them were too sneaky. As soon as they felt that something was wrong, they immediately took the golden bell away, even at the expense of injuring themselves. How could this be? The four of them had ugly expressions on their faces. Piessa turned to look at Zichen. "Kid, come and try." Zichen shook his head and said, "I can only guide them, but I can't break them." "How would you know if you don't try?" Piessa stared at Zichen. "Don't you want the golden bell?" Zichen said calmly. "Like that attack just now. If it had landed on me, even if it didn't kill me, it would have taken away half of my life. The golden bell is naturally a good thing, but it's my fortune to get it, and it's my fate to lose it." Just as Zichen's voice fell, a loud bell rang out from the depths of the inextinguishable divine rune. "It's the golden bell." Zichen suddenly stared into the distance. He had originally guessed that the golden bell was here, but now it seemed that was not the case. It was still in the depths. Zichen, who had been thinking that it was his fortune to get it, and it was his fate to lose it, was about to rush over at full speed. "Kid, you'd better stay here and guard this place for us." Piessa laughed. The golden bell in his hand vibrated, blocking Zichen's path. At the same time, the other three people continuously attacked, breaking the inextinguishable divine runes around them. This was to prevent Zichen from teleporting. Piessa was the first to fly forward, forming a straight line as he entered the depths of the inextinguishable divine rune. The other three followed closely behind. In this place, except for the four of them, almost no one else had the strength to fight for the golden bell. Soon, the four of them left, leaving Zichen alone in the inextinguishable divine rune. Zichen, who had been nervously moving forward, suddenly stopped. A smile appeared on his face. There was no harm in guessing wrongly. There must be something important in the inextinguishable divine rune. Otherwise, there would be no need to set it up. The four of them had already left, disappearing without a trace. Zichen took out the divine seal that the old man had given him. Previously, he had already refined the divine seal, which had practically become his natal item. Now, according to the records in the Tao fruit, Zichen had activated the divine seal. The divine seal glowed, completely enveloping his body. Then, Zichen transformed into a stream of light and entered the inextinguishable divine rune in the sky. With the protection of the divine seal, the divine runes would not attack him. Zichen followed the records of the inextinguishable divine rune in his mind and walked in a relatively safe place, going up layer by layer. This place looked like a maze. The runes were intricate and complicated. At a glance, it seemed as if fireworks were lingering in the air. Fortunately, everything was in his memory. He could use his soul remembrance to look at these runes and find the correct method. After going down layer by layer, Zichen finally arrived at the core of the inextinguishable divine rune. There was a small sword floating in the air. The Sword of Tao. Chapter 4900. The divine rune Tao sword floated quietly in front of him. It wasn't a real sword, but something condensed from countless divine seals. It was a supreme treasure of the Tao of divine runes, just like the 5 golden bells. In the scene that Zichen saw, it was the divine rune Tao sword that flew out of the sky and killed the invaders, allowing the world to be preserved. At this moment, Zichen was in the middle of the divine seal. He didn't dare to move forward. Although there seemed to be no danger ahead, there were countless killing moves. Even if the divine seal rushed forward, it would be extremely dangerous. Moreover, Zichen was very clear that the main reason he could reach here was because of the old man's divine seal. The old man's status in this world back then was definitely not low. If it was someone else's divine seal, it might not be so smooth. Zichen sat down cross-legged, his hands beginning to form seals. Rays of light shot out from his fingertips, forming a divine imprint of attraction. This was the simplest divine imprint, and didn't require much skill. However, in the Tao of divine imprints back then, it was also the most crucial. Buzz! Being summoned, the Tao sword in front of him started to vibrate, creating ripples. As the ripples spread, the killing array in the surroundings temporarily stopped. In the next moment, the Tao sword disappeared and appeared in front of Zichen. The summoning divine seal disappeared, and the Tao sword was in Zichen's hand. The Tao sword wasn't sharp, but it was terrifying. Only Zichen could see how terrifying it was. When it was broken down, it was countless compressed divine runes. Zichen held the Tao sword in his hand and slashed forward. A ray of sword chi shot out and pierced through the inextinguishable divine rune, leaving a hole. Zichen's figure flashed and flew out of the hole. When he came to the outside world, he raised his head and looked at the inextinguishable divine rune. The hole in the rune didn't heal. Instead, it started to collapse. The inextinguishable divine rune was about to disappear. Zichen's expression changed. If this happened, wouldn't those guys know that he took the item? Just as Zichen was thinking of a way to make up for it, the other divine runes around him started to collapse as well. This world was also starting to collapse. Oh no, this world is going to disappear! Zichen came to his senses. Without thinking about anything else, he shot up into the sky. At this moment, cracks appeared in the sky. Those were the signs of the divine inscriptions collapsing. This space itself was made up of countless divine runes. Just as Zichen soared into the sky, the others followed suit. At this moment, even though some opportunities had appeared on their own, very few people would risk their lives for it. Whoosh! 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 Beams of light shot up into the sky and left this space. Zichen was one of the first few people to return to the upper world. The upper world had already collapsed, but there were some remnants of the upper world floating in the air. This time, the fragments were real void fragments that could increase one's cultivation. With a thought, rays of light flew towards him. Zichen did not stop. He was still flying towards the open sky. Many streams of light were following him. Just as he was about to leave this world, dozens of fragments of different sizes flew towards him and were collected by him. In the next moment, Zichen left the upper world. The others also came out. Some of them came early and obtained benefits like Zichen. Some wanted to take advantage of the lower levels, but most of them stayed in that world forever. Everyone came out one after another. Not long after, Zichen saw Helen and the others. They were all injured, but fortunately, their injuries were not serious. Zichen went forward to meet up with them. Next, he waited for the others. Zichen looked at the crowd. He wanted to see who had obtained the last golden bell. He did not have the strength to get it back, so he had to remember their faces. When he was strong enough in the future, he would ask for it. Many people came out, and all of them had smiles on their faces. Obviously, they had gained a lot. Only the 4 of them were missing. Zichen did not believe that they would die in there. With the protection of the golden bell, it would be difficult to die in the upper world. Suddenly, Zichen's expression changed. Those guys did not come. Could it be that they went to the inextinguishable divine runes? However, as soon as this thought appeared, several powerful auras rushed out. It was Piessa and the others. There were a total of 5 of them, each holding a golden bell. However, one of them had a particularly large bell. As soon as he appeared in the void, he laughed heartily. Clearly, he was very satisfied. Kid, hand over the thing! Zichen deliberately avoided Piessa's gaze, but he did not expect to be seen. With a cold shout, Piessa came in front of Zichen, his eyes cold. Piessa, what are you doing? Helen stared at Piessa, and the others were also on guard. Kid, hand over the thing inside, Piessa said coldly. What thing? Zichen asked. Schwa. 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 Another 3 rays of light approached. They were the other 3 holders of the golden bell. The 4 of them surrounded the small team. Stop playing dumb. Hand over the thing or die. Piessa's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. All of you will die. Killing intent came from all directions. The 4 had already locked onto the small team. Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion in front of them. The world of the Tao of divine inscriptions had shattered. In an instant, countless fragments were left behind, emitting brilliant light. This scene attracted everyone's attention. Usually, when a world shattered, it would be amazing if there were a few fragments left. Sometimes, there would not even be a single fragment. But now, the world of the Tao of divine inscriptions had shattered, leaving behind so many fragments. Moreover, many of them were high-grade fragments. Everyone was shocked, but no one went up to fight for it. It had to be said that very few people had such composure. Black Dragon, who had been waiting here, waved his sleeves. A force belonging to the trial realm extended out, enveloping all the scattered fragments. Piessa saw this scene, and there was a slight change in his expression. He had never seen so many fragments in his life. If he used the golden bell to fight for it, it was not impossible. However, after thinking about it, he dismissed the idea. Right now, he had to get the thing. Kid, do you want to live or die? He turned around and continued to urge. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, Zichen would not admit it. If he did, he might still have a chance to live. If he did, he would die. Now that he thought back to the first-person's trap set by the revered king, it was really laughable. This was because ever since Zichen entered the depths, his life had been threatened many times. He could be said to be in a precarious situation. Die! Piessa took out the golden bell, wanting to attack. Since when did the people of the immortal Slaughter City become so arrogant to come to Peace City and behave so atrociously? An indifferent voice sounded. Black Dragon, who was in a good mood after taking the fragment, noticed the commotion. Piessa's expression changed. He did not expect Black Dragon to interfere in this matter. He hurriedly turned around and cupped his fists. Sir, this kid took something of mine when he was inside. I was just about to take it back. Black Dragon's eyes flashed with ridicule. Are you going to rob it? Chapter 49:01. The 3 people who had retreated were all from Peace City. After seeing Lord Black Dragon intervene, they retreated. The person who had obtained the largest golden bell stood in the distance, watching this scene with a smile. I'm taking it back. I'm taking back what belongs to me. Piessa smiled embarrassedly. Black Dragon glanced at him disdainfully, then looked at Zichen. You tell me. I don't know what he's talking about, and I've never taken anything from him. If he thinks that I can move through those divine glyphs at will because I've obtained some supreme treasure and wants to steal it, then he's overthinking it. Many people's expressions changed. When Zichen was in that world, not only could he move about freely, but he could also control those divine glyphs to attack. Everyone thought that he had obtained a supreme treasure. A hint of surprise and curiosity appeared in Black Dragon's eyes. Zichen continued, I didn't obtain any supreme treasure. I just happened to eat a fruit when I was searching for fragments along the way. Thus, I obtained the ability to control those things. Naturally, it was easier for me. You're talking nonsense. What kind of fruit in this world could be so miraculous? Piessa clearly didn't believe him. His expression was very gloomy. He had originally wanted to hide this secret and settle accounts with Zichen later. He hadn't expected this sly guy to reveal it in advance. You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Zichen didn't answer. Instead, he asked a question of his own. Piessa gnashed his teeth. Even if that's the case, then what about the item in the endless divine glyphs? Hand it over. Zichen was amused. The 4 of you attacked with the golden bells at the same time, but you couldn't break through those divine glyphs. You think I can? If you can control it, then the item inside must have been taken by you, Piesa said coldly. There must be a supreme treasure inside that is even more powerful than the 5 great golden bells. Piesa had nothing left to lose. He was certain that he wouldn't be able to obtain anything from Zichen, so he definitely wouldn't let Zichen off easy. If he pointed out what he had, then there would definitely be others who would cause trouble for him. As expected, after these words were spoken, everyone stared at Zichen, their eyes flashing. That's right. At first, I suspected that the biggest golden bell was inside, Zichen admitted frankly. But when I heard the bell ring, I knew I was wrong. Then the 4 of you left to fight for it, and I left as well. You'll leave? Piesa sneered. Of course I wasn't willing to leave, but I didn't have the strength to break through the seal, so what was the point of staying there? Can't we wait for you to come back? Zichen glanced at Piesa and said, Don't look at me like that. Just one fruit. Even if you can control the formation, there is a limit. If I have the strength to control the formation, I will control the formation to envelop you the moment you get close. Then I will slowly torture you to death. At that time, what other treasures would I need? The golden bells of the 4 of you are the greatest treasures. I don't believe you. Piesa glared at Zichen. I don't believe a single word you say. Zichen said. What does it have to do with me whether you believe it or not? I'm not saying it to you. Previously, Black Dragon had asked him to say it, and he had said it. These words were meant for Black Dragon. Black Dragon smiled faintly. He didn't expect such an interesting thing to happen inside. He looked at Zichen and said, Even if there are no treasures, it seems that you have gained a lot inside. Double the entrance fee. Zichen immediately cupped his fists and took out double the entrance fee on the spot. Black Dragon then looked at Piesa. You, 10 times the entrance fee and get lost. Piesa didn't dare to make a fuss in front of a Heaven's Choice realm. Even if he had obtained the golden bell treasure, he left immediately after taking out a complete fragment. He didn't even dare to leave behind a harsh word. When they arrived here, Piesa had brought a small team with him. They had even joined forces with Class's team. Now, only he and Linduo, who had lost his physical body, were left. After Piesa left, Black Dragon looked at the other 3 people. His eyes became colder. When you enter, everything you obtain is a blessing. If you can't obtain it, it means that you don't have the ability. After coming out, you're even more unreasonable. You're being unreasonable with a guy from the immortal Slaughter City. If this is called being brainless, then the 3 of you are 15 times more brainless. Of course, the 3 of them didn't dare to refute. They quickly took out the fragments. Everyone was surprised. They didn't expect such a result. However, everyone soon understood. The Peace City and the Immortal Slaughter City weren't on good terms. These 3 guys had obtained huge benefits, yet they still colluded with the people from the Immortal Slaughter City and bullied the people from the Peace City. This was obviously unwise. Black Dragon put away the fragments and looked at the others. Then, everyone began to take out the entrance fee. After collecting the entrance fee, Black Dragon waved his hand and said, Disperse. Everyone immediately dispersed after bowing to Black Dragon and returned the way they came. Everyone had gained a lot this time, so they naturally wouldn't enter the void again. In the following days, no one would enter the void for a very long time. Black Dragon looked at everyone's departing figures. His gaze lingered on Zichen for a moment. For some time to come, Peace City would not be at peace. On the way back, the atmosphere was very relaxed. Avar smiled and said, Zichen, I didn't expect you to reach the trial realm so quickly. However, my luck isn't bad either. With this harvest, breaking through to the middle stage of the trial realm is just around the corner. Then congratulations. Zichen smiled and looked at the others. Everyone had a smile on their faces. It probably wouldn't be difficult to break through to the next realm. For the next period of time, everyone will stay in the city and cultivate. I also need to go into seclusion to recuperate. Once my injuries are completely healed, I will attempt to break through to the Heaven's Chosen Realm. Helen said. This was excellent news for everyone. As long as Helen broke through, Piesser and the others wouldn't dare to come. At that time, their team's ranking in the city would rise again. It might even be possible for them to return to their previous position. After arriving in the city, everyone didn't immediately return. Instead, they went to the tavern from before and drank a cup of wine. When they drank the wine again, it still tasted bad. However, Ziethen couldn't take out the wine himself in the tavern, so he drank slowly. After drinking 2 jugs each, everyone bid farewell and returned. Ziethen refined the power of laws contained in the wine midway. When he returned to his room, he didn't look at the black stone or the sword of Tao. After such a thing happened, he had to be careful for a while. Ziethen began to condense the divine rune. His first divine rune was the initial enlightenment of the law Tao. As long as he completely grasped this divine rune, his future cultivation would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. Using the divine seal as a guide, Ziethen outlined a divine rune diagram on the ground. However, before the final divine rune was formed, the divine rune would collapse. This happened several times in a row. In the end, Ziethen stopped and calmed his heart. He only tried to recall the scene he saw in the Fruit of Tao. Buzz! Chapter 4902. The Elementary Solution. The formation pattern appeared under Ziethen's feet. Energy from all directions gathered in front of him. A smile appeared on Ziethen's face. Although he had taken a shortcut with the help of the God's Seal, it was quite good. If he really had to study it and condense the God's Seal, it would probably take countless years. Ziethen sat down cross-legged and took out a law fragment. While refining the fragment, the energy from all directions could also help him increase his cultivation. Peace City was particularly lively today. Everyone who returned went to the tavern to celebrate. This was definitely a rare big gain in history. In the room, Ziethen had already made up his mind not to leave this city before he finished refining the resources. Piesser would definitely not give up. Once he could not find a weakness here, he would probably run to the periphery. Right now, he was not sure if anyone other than him could reach the trial realm that still belonged to them. However, for the time being, Black and White should still be able to control the situation. Therefore, the most important thing for him was to cultivate and grow as soon as possible. Based on the current situation, if he wanted to have power that did not fear anyone, he had to reach the Heaven's chosen state as soon as possible. The fragment in Ziethen's hand was being consumed. The energy from all directions was also being absorbed by the formation. Suddenly, there was an urgent knock on the door. Ziethen! It was Big Beard's voice. Ziethen opened his eyes, put away the fragment, and stood up. The God's Seal turned into a ray of light and entered Ziethen's body. The elementary solution then dissipated. Come in. Big Beard pushed the door open and entered, his eyes filled with anxiety. Ziethen hurriedly asked, "What happened?" Everyone had just returned and gained a lot. They should be in a good mood, but Big Beard was clearly very anxious. Something happened to Alva. In addition to anxiety, Big Beard's eyes were also filled with rage. Speak slowly. What happened? Didn't we just disperse not long ago? Previously, everyone had been drinking. After drinking 2 pots each, they went their separate ways. What could have happened? That idiot Arwa didn't cultivate after he came back. Instead, he felt that he wasn't having enough fun, so he called the Chien brothers out to drink. In the end, he provoked Jeffrey's team. The bearded man said angrily. Right now, all 3 of them are lying in the ring. Let's go and take a look. Hearing this, Ziethen walked out of the room, and Big Beardy began to explain what had happened to Ziethen. Jeffrey's team was very famous in Peace City because Jeffrey himself was a Heaven's Chosen. Back then, before Helen's realm had fallen, the 2 teams had fought against each other. After her realm had fallen, the 2 teams were no longer on the same level. The person Arwa challenged was Jeffrey's younger brother, Jeffrey An. They were both at the initial stage of the trial, but Arwa was defeated in less than 10 moves. Big Beard said angrily. Under normal circumstances, Everyone is very careful and almost never provoke those powerful teams. I don't know what's wrong with them today, but they actually dared to provoke Jeffrey's team. Zichen understood Awa's temper. He didn't seem like someone who would take the initiative to cause trouble. There might be other hidden reasons for his sudden challenge. While the two were talking, they didn't slow down. Soon, they arrived at the Peace City's ring. Fighting in the ring wasn't rare. Both sides would challenge each other and gamble some resources. There would be no witnesses, and it was more of a formality. However, when Zichen arrived, he found that many people had already gathered to watch the show and cheer. Zichen's expression changed. He felt that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Helen, how do you discipline your subordinates? You've fallen for so many years. Can't you let your subordinates behave with their tails between their legs? Today, I've attracted so many people to watch the show. You may be shameless, but I, Jeffrey, still want my face. As soon as he arrived, Zichen saw a middle-aged man with a gloomy face reprimanding Helen's eldest brother. It was unknown whether he was in the wrong, but Helen's eldest brother stood there silently. The people around were pointing and gossiping. They were all watching the show. Zichen looked at the ring. There stood a young man who first kicked the Chien brothers and then stepped on Awa. You idiot! Of all the people you could provoke, you chose to provoke me. Jeffrey's foot stepped on Awa's face. You can't even last 10 moves. How dare you show off in front of me? Now kneel! Then he looked at the Chien brothers. And you too, kneel! The Chien brothers' eyes were spitting fire. They staggered to their feet. They preferred death to humiliation. Seeing this, Jeffrin immediately appeared in front of the two men and kicked them one after another, sending them flying. When the two fell to the edge of the ring, they coughed up blood again. Jeffrey's figure flashed and kicked the 3 of them together. He looked down at them. Now kneel! Awa spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were fixed on Jeffrey. I lost. You can kill me if you want, but you want me to kneel? Dream on! Jeffrin glanced around and said sarcastically, Is that so? So courageous? Bang! With a kick, the sound of bones breaking was heard. Awa flew more than 30 meters away. Jeffrey strode forward and stepped on Awa's chest. Kneel? Or die? No! Awa's mouth was full of blood, but his eyes were firm. Jeffrey, this is our fault. We can make up for it. Let them go first. They've already lost. There's no need to humiliate them. Helen's eldest brother finally spoke. What? Their faces are faces, but my, Jeffrey's, face isn't. Jeffrey looked at Helen and said disdainfully, I'm not looking down on you, Helen. Do you think you can compensate me with something at your level? Besides, what right do you have to ask for compensation in front of me? Jeffrey said coldly. Your people initiated the challenge. My brother was only passive. Now that he won, all you want is for the 3 of them to kneel and apologize. It's such a small request. How can you not agree? Jeffrey, don't go too far. A hint of anger appeared on Helen's face. Too far? What? You want to challenge me too? How about I treat you as a Heaven's Choice realm cultivator, and we can fight? Jeffrey smiled disdainfully. If you don't have the guts, then get out of here. Don't delay us from getting justice. They're so aggressive. Why don't you stop them? Zichen looked at the scene in front of him and was puzzled. Big Beard said helplessly, There's no way to stop a fight between people of the same level. If you insist on stopping them, you'll be breaking the rules. Jeffrey has been targeting you with words to provoke you into attacking. You're no match for him at your current level. Zichen said, So there's no problem with a fight between people of the same level? The bearded man nodded and said, That's right, but this Jeffron. Chapter 4903. Crack. Alva's ribs were broken. Jefferian smiled ferociously. Kneel or not? Alva clenched his teeth and looked at him. Over my dead body! The Chien brothers struggled to get up, but Jefferian raised his hand and shot out 2 beams of energy. The 2 fell down again. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Jaffirian's eyes flashed with killing intent. Seeing this, Helen was about to agree to Jaffirian's unfair competition. She couldn't just watch her three subordinates die. Just then, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded. Isn't it just a competition? I'll do it. As soon as he finished speaking, Zichen was already standing in the arena. After Big Beard's explanation, Zichen understood why he called him here. It was just a battle of the same level. There was no reason to back down. Moreover, the team had been good to him. There was no reason to sit back and watch. Jaffirian looked at Zichen with a sneer. Another one. You want to kneel in front of me too? The others also saw Zichen, and their expressions changed. Not long ago, many of them had seen Zichen. It was said that he had obtained something good. Unfortunately, Master Black Dragon appeared and didn't get anything out of him. It's just a competition. Why do you have to make it like this? Let them go first. I'll fight you. Looking at the state of Alva and the other two, Zichen was unhappy. He had never seen people beaten up like this in a competition. Jaffirian sneered. Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? He clenched his fist as if he was clenching it. Be careful. Alva squeezed out 2 words through gritted teeth. But it was still too late. A mysterious force appeared around Zichen, like a stream of water. The next moment, this force turned into a transparent palm and grabbed Zichen firmly. It's over. Another one! He's too careless. Does he really think he's made of mud? This is the 4th one. Helen's team of initial level has been wiped out. Without the initial level, is he going to fight the intermediate level? Sighs could be heard from the crowd. Many people were shaking their heads and lamenting Zichen's carelessness. Helen's expression also changed. Originally, when she saw Zichen go up, she actually had some hope. After all, before Zichen had advanced, he had defeated an initial realm expert beside Pieser. Who would have thought that he would follow in the footsteps of the other 3 in a single exchange? The bearded man was also stunned. Then, he patted his head in annoyance. This was troublesome. He had also implicated Zichen. 1. The energy around Zichen vibrated as he tried to break free from the shackles of energy, but to no avail. This energy was very strange. It was as soft as water, but it was full of strength and was very difficult to break free from. Jaffirian walked towards Zichen, his eyes full of disdain. Boy, you think you can fight me? Zichen glanced at him, and a beam of light shot towards Jaffirian. It was a ring that Zichen had spent a lot of points to exchange for. The ring glowed and immediately flew towards Jaffirian. Jaffirian still had a sneer on his face. With a wave of his hand, a layer of energy appeared and trapped the ring. This was his power, and it was extremely mystical. But in the next moment, the ring trembled and suddenly enlarged. It broke free from the energy seal and smashed towards Jaffirian. The 2 sides were so close that Jaffirian's expression changed and he had to retreat. At the same time, another beam of light shot towards Jaffirian. It was a black spear that he had obtained after destroying Lin Duo's body. It was like a black lightning bolt. Jaffirian retreated again and again. During this time, he opened his mouth and spat out a beam of sword light. It flew out like a rainbow and hit the ring. Clang! The ring flew back. Looking at Jaffirian's sword light again, there were some fine cracks. There was a touch of anger in his eyes. He stretched out his hand and pushed forward. An energy barrier appeared, and the incoming black spear was blocked by the barrier. Zichen had not condensed this weapon yet, so it was very weak. He was just using it to make up the numbers. The real killing move was then revealed. The broken sword, which had merged with the slaughter spirit, made a sharp turn in the arena and instantly pierced through Jaffirian's chest. Puff! A wisp of blood splattered. The broken sword flew back to Zichen's side and quietly floated there. Such a scene shocked everyone outside the arena. Zichen was clearly trapped by the energy, but he was still able to use such a killing move and injure Jaffirian. This was very frightening. It should be noted that when the 3 of them were trapped, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Below the arena, Jaffirian's expression also changed. Looking at his brother's wound, a tyrannical emotion brewed in his eyes. Helen breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the crisis had been resolved. The winner has been decided. Can you let him go now? Zichen, who was still trapped by the energy, looked at Jaffirian calmly. The previous blow had only pierced through his chest, which was not fatal. But if it had hit his brain, he would have died. Therefore, Zichen had shown mercy in this battle. The winner had been decided. Jaffirian lowered his head and looked at the bleeding wound. His eyes gradually showed a hint of cruelty. You dare hurt me? Zichen frowned slightly. His opponent didn't seem to be willing to admit defeat. You son of a b***tch, how dare you hurt me? Jaffirian raised his hand and clenched it fiercely. Go to hell! Zichen felt a terrifying force gushing out from the seal around him, forming a terrible squeezing force. He was going to crush his own body. Stop, you've already lost! Zichen heard the bearded man's angry shout. Jaffirian, you've already lost! Then came Helen's voice. But these voices obviously could not save him. He had to save himself now. The ring turned into a ray of light, and rushed towards Jaffirian for the second time. The black spear that had fallen to the ground flew up again and turned back to attack. The broken sword in front of Zichen also surged with ripples at this moment. Endless killing intent surged. Feeling the pressure getting stronger, Zichen's eyes became cold. Do you want to fight to the death? Son of a b***tch, I'll kill you! Jaffirian's eyes were full of cruel killing intent. Whoosh! The ring flew back and directly enlarged, falling towards Jaffirian's head, trying to trap him. Buzz! Rays of light flew out from behind Jaffirian and coiled around the ring like spiritual snakes. The black spear that followed was also blocked. The ring was vibrating rapidly, shattering the attacks that were blocking it. Whoosh! Zichen's eyes flashed with a cold light. The broken sword attacked again. This time, it did not change direction, but the closest distance between them. The furious Jaffirian stretched out his hand and pushed again. A dozen layers of energy light formed a protection in front of him. Obviously, he intended to use this energy to consume Zichen's attacks again and again. You're courting death! As the broken sword approached, the dozen layers of protection were instantly pierced. Then, the broken sword pierced Jaffirian's palm and his shoulder. At the same time, the ring turned into a ray of light and flew towards Zichen. It did not slow down. Instead, it fell on Zichen's body with a powerful attack. Boom! Chapter 4904. After escaping, Zichen looked at Jaffirian indifferently. You've lost! Jaffirian, who was bleeding profusely, became even more violent, and the energy around him surged wildly. Obviously, he wouldn't admit defeat so easily. Zichen stomped his foot, and a ripple spread out in all directions. Awol and the other two, who were still in the ring, were lifted up by a force and slowly fell out of the ring. Luo Xiao and Big Beard hurried forward to check on them. If it were before, Jaffirian would have stopped Zichen. But now, the humiliation of defeat made him unable to care about anything else. He only had Zichen in his eyes. Die! He growled like a beast. Streams of energy came from all directions, forming a white airflow, trying to seal Zichen. Whoosh! A light flashed under Zichen's feet, and like a bolt of lightning, he appeared on the other side of the ring. I'll warn you again. You've lost. Back off quickly! Standing behind Jaffirian, Zichen's voice was cold. Jaffirian turned around, and the energy around him surged wildly. Streams of energy turned into spears in front of him, filling the whole ring in the blink of an eye. Die! Countless spears whistled forward, straight at Zichen, leaving him no room to dodge. The ring in front of Zichen shook and rotated at high speed, stirring up terrifying ripples, blocking the spears in front of him. I'll warn you again. You've lost, or don't blame me for being rude. Zichen's eyes revealed a hint of killing intent. Below, Helen also looked at Jeffrin. Do you want to see your brother die? Jeffrin stared at the ring. As long as my family can stand, we won't admit defeat. Hearing his words, Sichin no longer had any worries. He activated the thunder escape, and like a bolt of lightning, he appeared behind Jeffrin. Die! Jeffrin reacted quickly, turning around and throwing out a punch. Sichin sidestepped and dodged his opponent's fist. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed his opponent's arm. With a loud boom, the arena shook, and Jeffrey was sprawled on the ground. Jeffrey, who had fallen to the ground, was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, but the killing intent in his eyes was even stronger. Sichin rushed forward and stomped on Jeffrey's arm, breaking it with a crack. Jeffrin let out a blood-curdling scream. Below the stage, killing intent surged in Jeffrey's eyes. Everyone's expression froze. Previously, they had thought that Sichin was going to lose. They hadn't expected the tables to turn like this. Looking at Jeffrey's state, it was obvious that he didn't have the strength to fight back. Crack! Jeffrian's other arm was also broken by Sichin. Sichin didn't ask if his opponent admitted defeat. Instead, he exerted more force, this time aiming to break Jeffrin's legs. Sichin's eyes were indifferent, without the slightest hint of emotion. To be able to reach this stage, which one of them would be a good person? Who hasn't killed countless people? But at this moment, sensing Sichin's indifference, everyone was still afraid. He was truly ruthless when he didn't say a single word. It was much more terrifying than when Jeffrian had tortured Alva and the other two. Jeffrey glanced at the crowd. Bastard, stop! Seeing that Jeffrian's legs were about to be broken, a shout rang out. A person quickly rushed onto the arena. He didn't try to save Jeffrian, but instead attacked Sichin. It's just a fight. Do you want to kill me? A powerful pressure descended, and the aura of the middle realm filled the arena. Sichin turned around and struck out with his palm. With a loud boom, he borrowed the force of the impact to retreat to the edge of the arena. A man stood where he had been standing. He didn't even look at Jeffrian. Instead, he coldly stared at Sichin. Kid, do you want to kill me? I gave him a chance, Sichin said. You dare talk back? The man flew into a rage and punched out. A powerful pressure appeared in the air. The fist was like a blazing flame, flying towards Sichin. The ring in front of Sichin appeared again. Layers of spinning surged, and with another boom, the ring was sent flying. Kid, you're too arrogant. How dare you ignore the rules? Let me teach you a lesson. The flames dissipated. The man tapped his foot and approached Sichin. Sichin wasn't afraid at all. His body turned into a bolt of lightning and tangled with the middle realm cultivator. The two people in the arena were like two bolts of lightning, flying around the arena. From time to time, there would be a boom, and layers of ripples would spread out. There was a hint of anxiety in the big bearded man's eyes. He was about to enter the arena. Helen slowly shook her head. At this moment, her expression was very serious. Something was not right about this matter. She looked around, trying to see something, but she didn't find anything. In the arena, the two people instantly separated. Sichin retreated to the edge of the arena, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Sichin, are you okay? The bearded man asked worriedly. Sichin wiped the blood from his mouth and shook his head. I'm fine. Hey, what do you mean by that? The bearded man shouted at the middle realm cultivator on the stage. Can't you see that your guy broke the rules first? I only saw him use the excuse of sparring to kill someone, the middle realm cultivator said indifferently. Your guy was even worse, the bearded man said angrily. Jeffrin only made him kneel. He didn't go so far as to kill him. What's a small thing like kneeling compared to a life? The middle realm cultivator looked coldly at Sichin. So he broke the rules first. The bearded man wanted to say something else, but Sichin raised a hand and cut him off. There's no point in reasoning with these people. If he thinks kneeling is nothing, then I'll make him kneel next. You! The middle realm cultivator sneered. I'll do it! The bearded man shouted, preparing to fly toward the arena. Swish! A beam of light suddenly appeared in front of him. A man blocked the bearded man's path. Don't you think it's too much to ask for 2 against 1? Bullshit! The bearded man said angrily. I'm going to beat him up. It's only 1 against 1. If you want to fight, wait until they're done, then I'll come and fight you. But right now, you can't go up. Zichin is only an initial cultivator. How can he fight a middle realm cultivator? He asked for it. Who told him to break the rules? The man said carelessly. And this is the price he has to pay for breaking the rules. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly came from the ring. The space behind the middle realm cultivator twisted violently, and a spotted tiger appeared. Its pair of cold eyes stared straight at Zichin, as if it was staring at the Grim Reaper. Zichin felt as if all the energy in his body was being suppressed by an invisible force. Even his breathing became hurried. The middle realm cultivator gave him a dangerous feeling. That's a demonic flame tiger. Jose is completely enraged. I can't believe he used this move. Looks like Jose doesn't want to waste time. This initial cultivator is finished. Outside the stands, the expressions of the others changed. In this situation, Zichin clearly had no chance of winning. At the back of the crowd, a young man watching the fight sneered. Whether or not he gets a treasure, we'll know in a moment of life and death. Buzz. Chapter 4905. A giant tree appeared from the space behind Zichin. This was the Thunder Tree. Lightning flashed, and its branches were thick and strong. Thunder leaf was dense, like a huge and towering city wall. It was also known as the Thunder Tree. As it appeared in the sky, it released a dazzling light of thunder. The pressure that came from the demonic tiger was completely blocked outside. At the same time, a sense of danger emerged from Zichen's body. Below the arena, many people's expressions changed. Jose's demon tiger of heavenly flame seemed to be real. It growled uneasily, and its cold eyes became alert. Yusef's expression changed as well. He had thought that he could easily crush his opponent with his middle level of cultivation. He did not expect his opponent to have such means. A strange light flashed in the eyes of the young people outside the crowd. They murmured in surprise, "Is this some kind of technique?" Alva and the Chien brothers temporarily adjusted their breathing, and then looked at the arena. At this moment, Zichen's eyes were cold, and his condensed aura exuded a sense of terror. The giant tree was like some kind of ancient existence, making people feel extremely oppressed. I don't care what you are. You broke the rules, and you have to die! Yusef shouted and clapped his hands together. The demonic tiger behind him roared and charged forward. As if stepping in the void, every step caused the void to tremble and distort. Boundless fire energy stirred up layers of ripples, causing the space to tremble. Buzz! The thunder tree behind Zichin also trembled, as if stirring up the entire sky. Then, the thunder tree, like an ancient mountain, rushed toward the demon tiger. Boom! The moment the two collided, the void distorted violently, and a violent roar sounded. The arena began to tremble, and rays of light lit up from all sides. The nearby formation patterns were automatically activated, dissolving the residual power of the battle. In a head-on confrontation, the Thunder Tree was not weaker than the demon tiger. Every time the two sides collided, a terrifying aftershock sputtered out. The people around were shocked. An initial realm cultivator had such powerful combat strength. I'm Fire, your wood. I'm your natural nemesis, Jose said coldly. Watch me ignite you. Boundless flames burned on the demon tiger's body. It opened its mouth and spat out like a dragon. A large amount of flames fell on the thunder tree, trying to ignite it. 1. Lightning flashed on the surface of the thunder tree as countless bolts of lightning swam around it. Among these bolts of lightning, there were also thunder flames. This was no ordinary tree. It was the symbol of the Saint Spirit realm, one of the 5 ancient spirits. Rumble! Thunderbolts exploded in all directions, and powerful energy surged out. The demonic tiger began to retreat in defeat, and the flame energy around its body quickly dimmed. Outside the ring, everyone was shocked. Jussi, who was at the middle level, was actually at a disadvantage in this competition. Damn it! Seeing that the flames were of no use, Jose's eyes flashed with anger. He had lost a lot of face for not being able to suppress an initial round cultivator. With a loud shout, the flames on the demonic tiger's body burned brightly again. Then, he formed a seal with his hands and turned into a ray of light that entered the demonic tiger's body. As if they had fused together, the flames on the demonic tiger's body began to turn black, and an extremely dangerous aura emerged. Brat, I want you dead! The demonic tiger's eyes became even sharper. It spoke in human language and stepped forward in the void. Demonic flames surged. Looking at this scene, Zichen's expression did not change at all. He only said 4 words. Divine Ancestor Prison! This was the spell that Old Man Bai had given him. Zichen guessed that this should be the strongest spell in the Saint Spirit realm, and it should have been given to the first person. However, due to an unforeseen event, Old Man Bai had opened a door for him when he took away his trial token. The tree of the Lightning Ancestor, which was known as the Spirit Guardian, stretched out its thousands of branches and leaves, as if forming a strange divine pattern. Infinite light bloomed in the air, and a vast aura swept through the surroundings. Everyone subconsciously raised their hands to block the light. The demonic tiger let out an angry roar and rushed towards the tree of the Lightning Ancestor, but in the next moment, the roar turned into a scream. The branches and leaves that resembled divine runes landed on its body and forcibly sealed its power. The demonic tiger's huge body shrank. The original black flames had been suppressed and disappeared. After its body returned to its normal size, its body exploded. When the bursts of energy dissipated, everyone saw Jussi's body fall to the ground, his aura weak. He had been defeated. Everyone was shocked. Jussi, who was in the middle level, had been defeated even after using the heavenly flame demonic tiger. Zichen looked at Jussi with a murderous look in his eyes. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. I admit defeat! At this moment, Jussi, who felt that something was wrong, gritted his teeth and exclaimed. Bang! But it was too late. Zichen's foot landed, and his body flew out of the arena, drawing a line of blood in the air. As for Jeffrey had seen that the situation was not good and had taken him down. Jussi, who had flown out of the arena, coughed up blood again, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Zichen said indifferently, You should thank me for not killing you, and at the same time, thank me for not making you kneel. Very well, I will remember you. Jussi snorted coldly. He had lost a lot of face today. Zichen said in a cold voice, The next time you want to fight me, you'll have to put up a good fight, or I will kill you. What a big tone. Let me, Quill, fight you. At this moment, another ray of light fell on the arena. The aura surging around this person was stronger than Jussi's. He was obviously in the higher level. Zichen glanced at the other party. I will fight you! At this moment, Helen came to the arena. Higher level against higher level. Let me see what you have! A broadsword appeared in Helen's hand, and her eyes were full of coldness. She was very angry that such a thing had happened today. Quill looked at Helen with a touch of fear in his eyes. Although they were both in the higher level, he knew that he could not beat Helen. Helen, you are a captain. How can you bully a team member? I will play with you. Jeffrey flew toward the arena. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from the depths. You can't beat an initial level, and you can't beat an intermediate level. If you can't beat an advanced level, are you going to send out a Heaven's Chosen One? Don't be shameless. Hurry up and disperse. Jeffrey's face changed, and he retreated to his original place. He cupped his fist in the direction of the voice. This was the voice of Lord Black Dragon. Let's go! The next moment, Jeffrey snorted coldly and turned to leave with his people. There was no more excitement to watch, and the others also dispersed. However, after today's battle, they remembered Zichen. That cautious little guy had grown to such a level in such a short time. On the arena, Zichen's eyes moved quickly, staring at a certain place. A young man stood there, looking at Zichen. The two looked at each other, and the young man smiled slightly. Zichen's eyes gradually turned cold. He recognized the other party. It was the one who had obtained the biggest golden bell. Chapter 4906. Zichen's eyes grew colder and colder. He had already guessed the whole story. The young man who'd obtained the biggest bell, like Picot, also wanted to know what he'd obtained from it. That was why he'd done this. However, the other party was more cautious, or perhaps more cunning. He didn't take the initiative to show himself, but instead chose to use this roundabout method to force him to make a move. Swish! Alva arrived at the arena. Despite his heavy injuries, he seemed to have recovered quite a bit. He reached out and hammered Zichen. "Amazing!" he said in admiration. "You helped us vent our anger." Zichen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Alva knew the truth, who knew how he'd feel? The Chien brothers also walked over and thanked Zichen. Seeing the sincerity in their eyes, Zichen smiled wryly. "Perhaps the three of you were implicated by me." The three were stunned, but they quickly understood what Zichen meant. They smiled wryly as well. "Although we were used, we couldn't hold back and jumped into the pit on purpose." "We can't blame you." Alva clenched his fists. "We can only blame ourselves for being weak. If we had battle prowess like yours, Zichen, even if they came looking for trouble, we'd be able to beat the crap out of them." The Chien brothers nodded. It was true that they'd been impulsive, but the main reason for that was because they were weak. "If you know you're weak, then focus on your cultivation." Helen walked over. "In the past, no one paid any attention to us, so we all lost the will to cultivate. Now that we've encountered one life-or-death crisis after another, if we don't stay vigilant, we'll just have to wait for death next time." They all nodded. They all understood the principle of the weak being prey to the strong. Up until now, they'd always been the strong ones. However, there were always other strong ones, and now they were the weak ones. In the past, Peace City had been peaceful, without any disputes. But recently it had become much less peaceful. "Everyone, go back and cultivate. Zichen, you too. It's best if you don't go out for a while. I refuse to believe that trouble will come looking for you if you stay in your room." Helen glanced at everyone. Zichen nodded. "There seems to be some problems with my previous technique. I need to study it carefully." When Alva heard this, he said in shock, "There's a problem in suppressing someone at a higher level? What kind of sorcery is that?" "It's probably the most powerful technique in my world." This was Zichen's guess, but in all likelihood, it was the truth. "Both are ultimate techniques. Why is yours so extraordinary?" Big Beard said. "I'm actually a bit curious about the world you live in. A world I've never heard of actually has such a powerful technique." Alva and the others nodded in agreement. Both were the most powerful techniques, so why was Zichen so outstanding? "All right, if you have time, we can talk after you break through. If we continue to stay here, who knows what kind of trouble will appear." Helen interrupted their conversation and signaled for them to return to their cultivation. The group of 7 turned back along the original path. Along the way, the people they met would look at Zichen curiously. After returning to his room and closing the door, Zichen sat down and thought back to the battle earlier. If he had used the divine rune Dao sword, he would have won much more easily. But he would have been exposed. Before, Zichen hadn't guessed that this match was intentionally targeted. He had simply assumed it was a drunken brawl. Only after Lord Black Dragon's words did he realize that the other side had been testing him over and over again. It seemed that many people believed that he had acquired something good. And yet, the young man who had acquired the largest golden bell still continued to test him. Clearly, he believed that he had acquired something even more valuable than the golden bell. The divine rune Dao sword was a secret. Zichen didn't believe that they knew about it. This test was actually more of a guess. As long as he didn't take out the divine rune Dao sword, no one could be certain that he had acquired something good. But in the end, hiding it wasn't a solution. The golden bell was a supreme treasure of the Tao of Divine Runes. He had to get it back. In the future, he would definitely cross paths with those 5 again. But right now, there was no point in thinking about such things. The most important thing was to get stronger. All of the advantages he had had in the Saint Spirit world had disappeared here. It was as if everyone was standing on the same side, and the difference in power between them wasn't that great. The reason why Zichen had been able to surpass levels and win was also because of the Saint Spirit world's techniques. It wasn't because he was extraordinary. So, Zichen had to find something that could save his life. Now that he couldn't obtain enough points to exchange for supreme treasures, he could only rely on himself. Zichen took out the divine seal and continued to condense the elementary divine runes. He cultivated and thought at the same time. The ring was very good, but it couldn't greatly increase his attack power. The same went for the black spear. The slaughter spirit was very special. It was a great killing weapon. It was just that Zichen couldn't find a way to make it grow quickly. The divine ancestor's prison imprisonment needed to be comprehended step by step. Today, he had won because of this. But next time, it might not be the same. Suddenly, Zichen thought of the black stone. The reason why he had such an extraordinary harvest last time was because of the black stone. He held the black stone in his hand, but he still couldn't sense anything special about it. Zichen held the black stone in his hand. As he pondered, his mind gradually calmed down. A loud voice rang out in his mind. He couldn't hear what the voice was, but he felt like he was enlightened. Zichen was in a strange state, half asleep, half dreaming. The black stone in his hand vibrated gently. Zichen's body also resonated with it, and ripples spread out. In a daze, Zichen seemed to see a great hall. It was right in front of him. He wanted to reach out and touch it, but he couldn't. He kept moving forward, but he kept a distance from the great hall. The great hall was grand, vast, and had an ancient aura. It was like a god standing there, examining him. Zichen! Zichen! Zichen gradually regained consciousness. He opened his eyes. There was a blank look in his eyes. I fell asleep? He should have been cultivating. He didn't expect to fall asleep. Zichen! The voice rang out again. It was Arwa. Zichen removed the divine glyphs, put away the black stone, and opened the door. Looking at Arwa, he asked curiously, Your injuries healed so quickly? What injuries? Arwa walked in, cocking his head as he looked around Zichen's room. Weren't you injured just now? Zichen said. We just came back from the arena. Have you forgotten? Arwa suddenly turned his head, staring at Zichen as though he were some kind of freak. Zichen was taken aback. What, is that wrong? When you said just now, you meant half a month ago. What? Zichen's face flickered. Chapter 4907. Arwa tilted his head and looked around Zichen's room, as if looking for something. He didn't see any change in Zichen's expression. I say, have you become muddle-headed from your cultivation? It's been half a month since the last time. Arwa didn't even turn his head. There was an oppressive fluctuation coming from your room. It was very uncomfortable. Did something happen? He looked everywhere, including under the bed. He didn't find anything out of the ordinary. I sensed an abnormal aura, so I came to call you. What happened? Zichen shook his head. I'm not sure. I was cultivating. Could it be that it wasn't your room, but the abnormality next door? Arwa laughed. But I really admire you. You don't know how long you've been cultivating. If I were as diligent as you, I'd have broken through long ago. You haven't broken through yet? Zichen looked at Arwa and found that he was still in the initial level. Arwa laughed bitterly. This is breaking through. How could it be so easy? Even if I get resources this time, it'll still take some time. Zichen walked to the table, wanting to pour a cup of water for Arwa. But just as he picked up the teacup, he heard a bang. The teacup in his hand exploded. Zichen's expression changed. The teapot in his other hand also exploded. What happened to you? Arwa looked at him. Zichen shook his head. He was also in a daze. Arwa looked at Zichen, worry in his eyes. Are you sure you're okay? You don't seem to be in a good condition. I don't know what happened either. I was cultivating, but I felt like I was sleeping. I only woke up when I heard your voice. Something must have happened to my body, Zichen said. Then check it out and see what's going on. I'll go back first. Call me if you need anything. Arwa said goodbye and left, closing the door for Zichen on the way. Zichen sat down again. He was still in a daze and urgently needed to know what had happened. When he sensed his body, Zichen found something strange. First of all, his soul power turned golden and appeared in his sea of consciousness like a lake. Compared to the soul power of the past, the soul that had turned into a golden lake was much more vigorous and powerful. Moreover, it had become much more condensed. Zichen guessed that it had something to do with the Tao fruit he had obtained back then. After all, if one wanted to form divine imprints, a powerful soul was essential. Soon, however, Zichen noticed that his body had undergone some changes. His fleshly body seemed to have become stronger. His body was brimming with strength. No wonder he was unable to control his strength properly earlier. However, Zichen didn't understand what was going on with this change. He felt as if he had just slept and had a rare dream. In the dream, he saw an unreachable hall. It seemed as if he had been competing with the hall and couldn't get close to it. After a while, Zichen opened his eyes, but he still didn't know why his body had changed. Tao fruit? Or blackstone? He remembered that he was thinking about something, and then fell asleep in a daze. Xiao! Zichen's soul power moved, and the broken sword revolved around his body at high speed, bringing with it an ear-piercing whistling sound. His soul power had turned into a golden lake. The most obvious change was that the broken sword was faster, and Wei Li was stronger. At this moment, he hadn't used the slaughter spirit yet. Once he did, it would be even stronger. This meant that his combat strength had increased. Although he didn't understand, it was a good thing. Zichen used his divine seal to isolate the room and took out the divine rune Dao sword. The divine rune Dao sword shone brilliantly. At a glance, it seemed as if there were countless divine imprints shining, dazzling the eyes. After looking at it for a long time, one would feel dizzy. He used his soul power to control the divine rune Dao sword that had already been refined. The divine rune Dao sword let out a buzzing sound, and countless divine imprints rippled out in all directions. The divine imprints that Zichen had just isolated the room showed signs of collapsing. Seeing this, Zichen immediately put away the divine rune Dao sword. As expected of a supreme treasure of the Tao of divine inscriptions, it was much more powerful than a single golden bell. Most likely, only the combination of 5 golden bells would be able to contend against it. After putting away the divine rune Dao sword, Zichen took out the black stone and used his soul power to examine it. He still didn't find anything, so Zichen didn't think about anything else. He just treated it as a special object for enlightenment. Soon, he entered a meditative state. This time, the scene in the dream didn't appear because Zichen wasn't cultivating. He was comprehending the divine ancestors' prison-crushing technique. He didn't know if it was because of the black stone, but now his senses were sharper, and his understanding of the divine ancestors' prison-crushing technique was also deepening. Only when the door was knocked a second time and Arwa's voice sounded did Zichen open his eyes. Time passed quickly, and Zichen believed that it definitely wasn't a moment ago as he had thought. Opening the door, Zichen asked, "Did I disturb you again?" Arwa shook his head, and then walked in with his head lowered. Seeing his depressed mood, Zichen asked, "Something happened?" Arwa nodded and said, "The immortal spell world is gone." "What?" Zichen looked at Arwa. In Peace City, there had always been rumors about the disappearance of the immortal spell world, and every time, everyone would laugh and joke about it. "A month ago, we went to explore the world. It was the place where you could go without any obstructions. A long time indeed passed. Arwa sighed and said, "That was the Divine Rune world, and the Divine Rune race lived there. They were born with a keen sense of divine runes, and were a very powerful race." "And then?" Zichen asked, but he had a bad feeling. Arwa said dejectedly, "The Divine Rune world belonged to the immortal spell world, but the Divine Rune world was destroyed, and the people inside died." Zichen frowned slightly and said, "From what you're saying, the immortal spell world isn't just one world. Even if the Divine Rune world is lost, it can't make the entire immortal spell world disappear, right?" "That's what I thought before, but in this month, we discovered a few more broken worlds. After verification, we found that they were all worlds in the immortal spell world. So, everyone unanimously came to the conclusion that the immortal spell world is gone, completely gone. And we will never be able to reach that place, and we will never be able to return. We are trapped here forever." Zichen's expression suddenly changed, because if the immortal spell world really disappeared, then everyone's hope would be extinguished. Didn't this mean that everyone would change their original thoughts and turn this trial realm into a new immortal spell realm? Swish! Zichen stood up with an ugly expression on his face. "What's wrong with you? I have to go back." This matter could not be delayed. He had to discuss it with the two old men, and at the same time, ask about the specific situation. As for the accuracy of Arwa's information, Zichen was still certain that it was the supervisors of the other trial realms. "If you go out now, aren't you worried that they will come after you?" Arwa asked. "I can't care." Chapter 4908. Seeing Zichen leave, Arwa shouted again, but Zichen had already disappeared. Zichen was definitely in a dangerous situation now. Everyone was eyeing him covetously. Arwa hurriedly left the room. Zichen was a little anxious. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. His previous guesses had come true. But why did the immortal spell realm disappear? What about Gashan? For so many years, he was the only one who went to the immortal spell realm. Why didn't he return when the immortal spell realm disappeared? Before he left the city, Arwa followed him. Besides him, there was also Big Beard, Luo Xiao, and the Qian brothers. "Why are you all here?" Zichen looked at them. "We heard that you're leaving the city. We'll go with you," Big Beard said. "We can take care of each other." "No need, really. I'll be back soon." Zichen felt a surge of warmth in his heart. "Don't worry. It'll be fine." Big Beard and the others were a little skeptical. "It's really fine. I'll be back soon. With my speed, there shouldn't be many who can catch up to me." Big Beard and the others were still worried. They said that they wanted to send Zichen out of the city. Outside the city, Zichen turned into a ray of light and flew toward the horizon. After using the lightning escape technique, even Big Beard couldn't catch up to Zichen's speed. With such speed, there's no need to worry. Seeing Zichen disappear into the distance, everyone relaxed. If they really encountered danger, they could still run if they couldn't beat him. If they encountered someone who could suppress Zichen in speed, even if they followed him, they wouldn't be of much help. They turned back and returned to the city. Behind a mountain peak, Piesser watched Zichen leave. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "I've waited for half a month. Let's see where you can run this time." He followed him personally. No one would have thought that a high-level cultivator of the trial would be waiting outside the city. However, Piesser soon discovered that Zichen, who had been moving forward, had disappeared. This made his expression change. He was a little stunned. He continued to chase, but there were still no clues. He had really disappeared. At this moment, Zichen had been drawn to an independent space where the two old men, Black and White, were. When Zichen told them what he knew, the two old men's expressions turned ugly. They were not surprised, which meant that they had known about this for a long time. "Senior, I'm worried that they will change their minds. Perhaps even Peace City will no longer be peaceful." This was what Zichen was worried about, so he had to come back. Balak said, Although we have discovered some broken worlds in the immortal spell world, this doesn't mean that the immortal spell world has truly disappeared. This is the guess of some people. Even without these broken worlds, they still feel that the immortal spell realm has disappeared. Zichen said. In that case, there are still some people who believe in the existence of the immortal spell world? That's right. They don't want to see a large-scale massacre erupt. Carrying on the responsibility of the past, they don't want to deliberately cause misery and suffering, so they've always been very conservative. Balak said in a deep voice. As long as their willpower remains firm, there will be no problem. Zichen was still a little worried. But what if they come here and get clues from others? The demons from our world are just new here. They're no match for them. This is also what we're currently considering. The two of us plan to use the rules and the help of some old friends to forcefully isolate this place so that others can't come here. Balak said. That includes you. Who will be next? However, this space can't be independent for long. One day, they will still come here. Zichen nodded and understood what Balak meant. In the end, he still had to be strong. What the two old men could do now was to protect the trial realm that belonged to them while Zichen was still weak. Senior, if my friends come in, please take care of them. Before leaving, Zichen pleaded with the two old men. The last time he came, he had left behind a trial token. This time, he would not be able to come back. The two old men nodded. Blacklake said, You have to be careful too. Although it's important to be strong, the most fundamental thing is to stay alive. Zichen bowed solemnly to the two old men. Go. The rise and fall of the Saint Spirit realm will fall on your shoulders. Zichen bid farewell and left. He alone shouldered the lives of countless creatures in a world. He felt a huge responsibility. Whoosh! Light flashed, and Zichen reappeared in the air. At the moment, even he did not know where he was. He began to turn back the way he came and used the thunder escape. The world suddenly lit up, and a dangerous aura approached. Zichen, who was moving forward, stopped instantly. A light flew past him. Looking at the traces left in the air, Zichen's expression changed. He stared ahead. A figure appeared. Kid, where did you go? It was Pieser. Were you following me? Zichen asked instead of answering. Pieser's face had a hint of anger. Tell me, where did you go? Are the people from your world hiding in that place? Zichen was glad that he reacted quickly. The two old men would seal the trial realm. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Not to mention the appearance of the many powerhouses in the immortal Slaughter City, even Pieser alone would turn the world upside down. Whoosh! Zichen did not waste time with Pieser. He directly flew forward. He knew his strength. He used the thunder escape to the extreme. Trying to run? Pieser laughed sarcastically. Do you think it's possible? His figure flashed and appeared in front of Zichen. His speed was even faster than the thunder escape. Zichen's expression changed. He quickly retreated. A light flew out from beside him. It was the broken sword. Do you think you're so great after defeating a middle realm cultivator? Let me tell you, you're still far from being able to challenge a high realm cultivator. Pieser clenched his fist and punched. Infinite light burst out from his fist. Boom! When the broken sword met the fist, it instantly shattered. Zichen's expression changed again. He originally wanted to use the broken sword to confuse the other party. When the time was right, he would use the massacre spirit. He did not expect the other party to shatter the broken sword with one punch, disrupting his plan. Buzz! The ring vibrated and flew toward the other party. Pieser punched again. However, the ring did not shatter this time. Instead, it flew back. Zichen kept the ring and ran again. However, his speed was far slower than Pieser's. He had just taken on the mission of saving countless lives in the Saint Spirit realm. Now, he encountered Pieser and his life was threatened. I can't die here! Zichen gritted his teeth. He slashed open the void with his saber and entered. Chapter 4909. Clang! The bell rang and ripples came from the void. They formed terrifying divine runes and swept towards Zichen. Zichen's expression changed. He used the divine seal to cover his body and quickly retreated. When the divine runes came into contact with the light of the divine seal, they didn't cause any harm to Zichen. Holding the golden bell, Pieser entered the void through the crack. His robes and long hair fluttered. Swoosh! Zichen held the spear and charged towards Pieser. This was Lin Duo's weapon. Zichen had snatched it, and it was quite powerful. Pieser sneered with disdain. He held the bell in his left hand and clenched his right hand into a fist. He punched forward. The dazzling fist landed on the spear. The spear paused for a moment before a powerful force surged. Cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of the spear. They slowly spread throughout the spear, and in the next moment, it exploded. Zichen's expression changed, and he flew back again. Fragments of the spear flew in all directions and brushed past his face. The broken sword from before and the spear now were all shattered by Pieser's fist. This shocked Zichen, and he didn't dare to take out the flowing broken knife. "Kid, if you meet other higher realms, you might be able to struggle and make some small waves. But in front of me, you don't even have the right to struggle." Pieser had an arrogant expression. Light flowed around his body, and he released a terrifying aura. His physical body was extraordinarily strong, and his fists were comparable to divine weapons. "Although I haven't broken through to the heaven-chosen realm, my physical body has long reached that level." Pieser raised his fist and said confidently, "Of all the things in the world, I only have one fist." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. The void trembled and a resplendent fist radiance came towards him. The ring in front of Zichen appeared again. It surged with ripples and blocked in front of him. Boom! The energy shook and the ring flew back but didn't shatter. "Kid, die!" A cold voice sounded in Zichen's ears. He heard the whistling of the fist. Pieser, who was faster than him, was already in front of him. In a hurry, Zichen could only block. Dong! The void shook again, and Zichen's body flew backwards. As for Pieser, who originally had a complacent look on his face, his expression changed. This was because his punch actually did not shatter the opponent's bones. One had to know that even a weapon should shatter. Zichen also reacted. Not long ago, his body had undergone some changes. His physical body had become much more tyrannical. Could it be that it had reached the point where it was comparable to a weapon? Die! Pieser closed in once again. Zichen could only clench his fists and charge forward. The two of them fought fiercely in the void, their bodies transforming into different splendors. Occasionally, there would be a huge tremor. Countless ripples rippled in the void. Zichen gradually relaxed from his initial nervousness. His physical body had indeed become incomparably strong. His eyes gradually lit up. It was not impossible to fight this battle. The more Pieser fought, the more shocked he became. His powerful physical body originated from the cultivation methods of his world. In addition, he had obtained many opportunities in the trial grounds countless times. That was why he had the strength he had today. In the past battles, he had always hidden his trump cards, not wanting others to know about them. He did not expect that today, when he used them in front of an initial realm cultivator, he would encounter an existence whose physical body was comparable to his. One had to know that he was an advanced realm cultivator. His opponent was only an initial realm cultivator. After close to 100 exchanges, Zichen used his speed to retreat during one of the exchanges. As the battle continued, the gap between the two sides became apparent. Zichen did not dare to be entangled and turned to run. Seeing Zichen running away, Pieser was relieved. He had really thought that his opponent was a monster. Humph! He snorted and chased after him. In terms of actual speed, he was much faster than Zichen. He was not worried that his opponent would escape. Who would have thought that Zichen, who was in front of him, would suddenly turn around and throw a punch at Pieser? "You overestimate yourself!" Pieser laughed sarcastically and threw a punch of his own. A terrifying pressure appeared in the void. Zichen had consumed a lot of energy during the battle, but he had not. Just as the two fists were about to collide, a golden light suddenly flew out from Zichen's sea of consciousness. Like a sharp sword, it pierced into Piacer's mind. Ah! At such a close distance, Piacer had no time to react. He let out a scream and retracted his fist, holding his head with both hands. Boom! Zichen's punch landed on Piacer's chest. With a boom, Piacer was sent flying. 1. The ring vibrated and flew towards Piacer. With a loud bang, it landed on Piacer's head and sent him flying. Just as I thought! Zichen, with blood at the corner of his mouth, had a look of excitement in his eyes. After eating the fruit of Tao, his spiritual power had become very strong, forming a golden lake. Using it now was indeed effective. The ring flew out a second time. This time, Zichen was prepared to trap his opponent, just like when he fought with Luan Duo. At that time, Piacer would be at his mercy. Clang! 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 At this moment, the small golden bell rang. The ripples of the unparalleled Tao surged, forming divine runes that spread out. The ring was stopped 100 feet away. Zichen's expression changed. He wanted to put the ring away. The ring was no longer under his control. It floated in the ripples and trembled continuously, as if it was stuck in a quagmire. Damn it! His expression turned ugly. He did not expect the golden bell to have such an effect. Again! He reached out and touched his forehead. A golden light flew out, turning into a sword that slashed toward Piacer. The sound of a bell reverberated in the air, the divine inscriptions appeared once again, and the soul's sword was also blocked 10 jang away. Seeing this, Zichen did not try anymore. He turned and ran. If not for the golden bell, he might have been able to kill the high-level Piacer. Brat, you're dead this time! However, just a moment later, Piacer's voice rang out from behind. His voice was filled with hatred. Zichen released his soul power to investigate. He found that Piacer was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His aura was not as strong as before, but it was extremely dangerous and terrifying. The golden bell that had saved his life was in his right hand. As for his left hand, he was holding the ring. You're dead this time! The distance between the two of them was closing rapidly. Zichen could only use his soul power to attack again. Clang! The golden bell trembled, forming divine runes that blocked the soul remembrance attack. Let's see what else you have, Piacer said coldly. This time, I swear to tear you into pieces and burn your bones to ashes. Piacer, who had never been in such a sorry state, was already furious. Zichen attacked repeatedly, but it was useless. The other party had the golden bell, which could restrain almost all attacks. The distance between the two of them was closing. Zichen's exhaustion was increasing. If he continued running like this, it would be very dangerous. I don't care. I'll give it my all. Zichen's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and decisiveness. He still had one last move. At the same time, he only had one chance to catch his opponent off guard. Chapter 49:10. The moment he saw the fragment, Zichen's eyes lit up. Without caring about anything else, he dashed into the fragment. The fragment was a spatial world. It was also the opportunity that everyone here had been searching for. Who would have thought that they would encounter it at this time? Piacer chased closely behind. When he saw Zichen enter the fragment, he laughed coldly. That's good too. Easy prey. He immediately dashed into the fragment. As a precaution, the golden bell in his hand vibrated and activated layers of divine inscriptions to protect his body. Indeed, just as he entered, a golden sword light froze in the void. Zichen's sneak attack had failed, and he had fled far away. The golden bell trembled once more and the golden soul sword light dissipated. Piacer looked at Zichen's fleeing figure, a mocking smile on his face. Zichen, you won't be able to escape! He had absolute confidence because the golden bell could restrain everything. As he chased after them, he actually felt a little lucky in his heart. If he had not snatched the golden bell last time, he would have been defeated by Zichen, who was only at the initial realm. His opponent's realm was obviously low, but he had a physical body that was not weaker than his and a soul that surpassed his. It must have something to do with the last time. However, this made him even more determined to kill him. There was a dense forest in front of him. After Piotr flew through the forest, he saw some undulating mountains. On these mountains there were many buildings. Some were already dilapidated, while others were still standing. Many years ago, when this world was still complete, this place should have been a sect. In places like this, opportunities usually existed. Piotr released his soul's spirit and discovered that the area of this sect was very large. It occupied thousands of mountain peaks and stretched out for countless miles. When he probed with his soul, he even discovered a few places with unusual fluctuations. There must be an opportunity here. His eyes became incomparably bright. He didn't expect that he would coincidentally discover such a miraculous place just by chasing after Zichen. All right. Let's kill Zichen first, then we can slowly explore. Previously he was flustered and exasperated, but because of this place, his mood gradually improved. At this moment, several mountain peaks suddenly trembled. Following that, divine markings appeared between the mountains and rivers. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. It was as if he had arrived in the void. A god clad in battle armor was currently facing him. His entire body was emitting intense light. What's going on? Pietro's expression changed yet again. At this moment, the divine being raised his weapon and slashed down. The entire space was about to be split into two. The terrifying might caused Pietro to feel the might of the heavens. Boundless fear surfaced in his heart. At this moment, standing in front of the god, he felt as insignificant as an ant. Just as the divine weapon was about to land on him and his body was about to be split into two, the sound of a bell suddenly rang out. The golden bell was sentient and automatically protected its owner. The divine imprints that it emitted seemed to be able to trace the origin of the divine weapon. The terrifying attack of the divine weapon in front of him disappeared, and even the tall god disappeared from Pietro's sight. The scene from before appeared once again. Pietro saw the fleeing Zichen. The dozens of mountain peaks beneath his feet exploded with a loud boom. Even the buildings within were reduced to fine powder. Pietro's good mood instantly vanished. He guessed what had happened and immediately shouted, "You wastrel, can't you see the opportunity here? Why did you destroy this place?" However, just as he finished speaking, ripples appeared in the sky above his head. A huge divine pattern appeared. The divine patterns that had been left here previously were activated, and the power of heaven and earth appeared once again. Looking at the rolling black clouds in the sky and the suffocating pressure, Pietro was instantly enraged. This idiot, didn't he know that doing this would completely destroy this place? At the same time, he was also glad. This world had already been destroyed. Even the remnants of the formation were not as strong as before. According to Pietro's guess, the power of the formation was perhaps less than 1/10,000th of its original power. However, this still made him feel an intense sense of danger. Fortunately, the golden bell was indeed an extraordinary treasure. It vibrated continuously, forming divine patterns that rushed towards the sky. Bolts of lightning fell from the sky one after another. It was extremely terrifying and carried with it a vast aura. It wreaked havoc on everything. The divine patterns rushed into the sky like sharp swords, cutting through the lightning. In the next moment, the lightning dissipated. The divine pattern swords rushed into the sky and swept past the divine pattern in the sky. Chi! 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 The strange phenomenon in the sky dissipated, and heaven and earth returned to its original state. Looking down, nearly 100 mountain peaks had disappeared. Who knew how many treasures had been left behind? Zichen, I want you dead! Pietro was so angry that he wanted to curse when he saw this messy scene. Subconsciously, he treated every blade of grass and tree here as his personal property. As long as he killed Zichen, he would have enough time to come here and search for what he wanted. However, he did not run far before the ground changed again. The mountains and rivers lit up, and the divine patterns that came from the ground were activated. Many years ago, this should have been the foundation of the sect. Now, it was used by Zichen to deal with him. The golden bell in Piecer's hand trembled. He was so angry that he shouted, "You idiot, these are all good things. Why did you destroy them?" Zichen did not reply. He continued to flee, and in the meantime, he activated the divine patterns carved into the ground. On one hand, it was to stop Piecer, but on the other hand, it was more to destroy. Piecer was mad with anger. "Zichen, I swear I will kill you!" With that, he displayed extreme speed. The golden bell rippled continuously. He was like a ray of light, charging straight for Zichen. Everywhere he passed, the divine patterns of the mountains and rivers trembled. The destructive aura surged, destroying everything. Many of the mountains behind him were instantly flattened. Some of the buildings halfway up the mountains were turned to dust and disappeared. Among them, Piecer felt that there were treasures in a few places. He was so angry that he cried out. Sensing Piecer's boundless anger behind him, Zichen finally stopped. He turned around and looked coldly at Piecer. Whoosh! Piecer approached in the blink of an eye. His eyes were like a poisonous snake's. He said angrily, "Run, why did you stop running?" "Fine, then let's continue." With that, Zichen turned and left. "Idiot, you can't leave!" Piecer sped up, blocking Zichen's path. He wanted to protect the area behind him. Just then, something strange happened in the ground. The divine patterns of the mountains and rivers were activated. A large black hand rushed out from the ground, grabbing at Piecer. Piecer snorted. The golden bell in his hand trembled and froze the hand. At this moment, Zichen tapped the space between his eyebrows, and a golden sword light shot towards Piecer. "It's useless, you!" Piecer's eyes were full of confidence and disdain. But before he could finish, the sword light was not frozen. Instead, it pierced through the divine patterns and flew towards his forehead. Puff! The divine pattern sword pierced through Piecer's body. Chapter 49:11. Now that he was on guard, Zichen's golden sword light could no longer harm Piecer, so he had to use the rune Dao sword. However, there was only one chance. Zichen had been waiting patiently, waiting for an opportunity. Now, he seized the opportunity. The rune Dao sword instantly broke through the golden bell rune, catching Piecer by surprise. However, it did not pierce through his forehead to deal a fatal blow. At the critical moment, the golden bell protected its master again. The runes it emitted caused the Dao sword to change direction and pierce into Piecer's body. However, in that instant, countless runes surged in his body, forming a terrifying destructive power. Piecer was heavily injured. Swish! The rune Dao sword turned into a ray of light and flew back to Zichen. The golden bell protected its master again and again, making him very angry. However, Zichen also knew that it was because his strength was too low. Even if he had advanced to the middle realm, the golden bell would not have been able to avoid the Dao sword even if it wanted to protect its master. Zichen's flowing blade appeared and slashed down from afar. The blade light swept towards Piecer like a waterfall. The golden bell rippled and blocked the attack again. Then Zichen saw that the heavily injured Piecer had actually turned and fled. He was stunned. He did not expect the other party to make such a choice. However, it was understandable. Under such circumstances, no matter how great the opportunity here was, how could it compare to one's own life? Zichen did not hesitate and chased after him. Only by killing Piecer would he be able to obtain the fortuitous encounter with peace of mind. Swish! In this world, the vegetation was lush and ancient trees towered into the sky. It was a scene out of this world. Piecer flew through the sky like a ray of light. He was heavily injured, and blood flowed from his wounds to the ground. Swish! The golden soul remembrance sword light flew over and was blocked by the golden bell. A long bell sound echoed in this world. Because he had already used the runes underground, Zichen could only obediently chase after him. There was no terrain to use. Even if Piecer was injured, his speed was still faster than Zichen. This was a huge problem. Of course, if others knew that Zichen, who was only at the initial realm of the trial, was chasing after a higher realm, their jaws would probably drop. Swish! Whoosh! The two of them transformed into rays of light and flew out of this space. Zichen was unwilling to give up. There was indeed a lot of good stuff here. He had deliberately left a mark here so that he could come back here after killing Pico. Piccolo, aren't you very capable? Stop, let's fight for 300 rounds. Aren't you embarrassed to run away as a high-level cultivator? You can't even beat me, who is at the initial realm of the trial. If I were you, I would definitely kill myself. Peacock, why aren't you saying anything? Hey Xiupi, are you mute? Zichen chased after him, not forgetting to provoke him with words. Pico was fuming, but he did not stop, no matter how much Zichen tried to provoke him. Xiupi, you weren't like this before. As he spoke, a golden soul remembrance flew out. Zichen was still using his killing move. The golden bell rippled and blocked the attack. Zichen looked at the golden bell that had ruined his plans several times and said angrily, "You idiot, don't you know who your master is?" Of course, the golden bell did not respond and stood guard beside Pico. All of a sudden Pico, who was in front of him, punched out and shattered the void. Zichen's expression changed when he saw this. What? You still want to run? The golden soul remembrance turned into a ray of light and shot towards the crack. Dang! The bell rang loudly and blocked the ray of light. Pico was unable to escape and continued to flee. You're already injured, and your injuries will only get worse. Let's see how you'll control the golden bell then. Zichen, who was still chasing, suddenly had a bad feeling. However, he could not figure out what exactly went wrong. Pico was already heavily injured. If this continued, the situation would be in his favor. The golden bell would not be able to last much longer. But where did this bad feeling come from? When Pico shattered the void, he did not manage to escape. However, someone did. More accurately, it was a spiritual body. It was Luanduo, whose physical body had been destroyed by Zichen. Under the cover of Piecer, he left the void and flew in the direction of Peace City. This place was not very far from Peace City. My lord, you must hold on! Luanduo was frantically increasing his speed. At this moment, he still could not believe that Lord Pico was being chased by Zichen to the point where he had nowhere to go, and had to ask for his help. How did that guy, who he had almost killed last time, become so strong all of a sudden? Peace City finally appeared in front of him. He quickly flew into the city and shouted with his soul power. Zichen obtained a precious treasure that far surpasses the golden bell. Furthermore, he discovered a huge world with countless resources. At first, Peace City was still relatively calm. However, as soon as Luanduo shouted those words, many auras instantly landed on him. It's true. Zichen is using that precious treasure to chase after Lord Pico. That precious treasure is very powerful. Even Lord Pico, who has the golden bell, is no match for it. Luanduo shouted again. His goal was simple. He wanted to lure everyone there. Swoosh! A ray of light suddenly appeared. A person stared at Luanduo. Are you sure? I'm 100% sure, Luanduo said solemnly. He knew that this person was the owner of the golden bell. Where is it? Lead the way, the person immediately urged. Luanduo was a little hesitant because he wanted to bring more people over, not just one person. Cut the crap and lead the way. At this moment, a young man appeared. He looked at the hesitant Luanduo and said impatiently. It was the young man who had set up a trap to test Zichen. He had the biggest golden bell. Following that, rays of light appeared one after another. From the looks of it, more than half of the people in the city would be here soon. Still not leading the way? A hint of coldness appeared in the young man's eyes. My lord, please follow me. Seeing more and more people, Luanduo hurriedly led the way. You're too slow. At this moment, a high-level cultivator stepped forward, swept up Luanduo's soul, and flew out of the city. The other people in the city also followed one after another. They were still very curious about the treasure that surpassed the golden bell. In addition, the person said that he had discovered a world. They might be able to gain something from it. Recently, there were many famous worlds like this. There might be something from the immortal spell world in it. Alva and the others also came out when they heard the news. However, when they saw the dense crowd, they still couldn't believe it. Did Zichen really obtain a precious treasure and was chasing after Pico? They were all too familiar with Pico. They hated him to the core. However, Pico's combat power was really strong. Was Zichen really chasing after him? Don't just stand there. Hurry up and take a look. Chapter 49:12. Helen left first. Alva and the rest followed the crowd, but they still couldn't believe what they had just heard. Zichen was chasing after Piesa? After all, Piesa had brought them a lot of trouble over the years. In the last expedition, he had almost killed them twice. Didn't Zichen go back? Why is he fighting with Piesa? Big Beard couldn't understand. Could it be that Piesa has been waiting outside? Alva's expression changed. So he chased after Zichen as soon as he left? Luo Xiao said. I don't care about that. I'm just curious. How did Zichen chase after Piesa? Is that scum scared out of his wits and begging for mercy? The others nodded, feeling deeply moved. Soon, everyone in the city left. There were even more people than the last time they went to explore the Divine Rune world. Black Dragon looked at the crowd and frowned. Isn't this a little too big? A middle-aged man beside him said. Before the city lord left, he told us not to make any mistakes. Do you want to go or should I? I'll go. Black Dragon's figure flashed as he followed. Xiepi, you've been running for so long. Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you want that mysterious place from before? Xiopi, I don't want to criticize you, but your running posture is too ugly. You're a disgrace to a high-level cultivator. At first, the crowd didn't believe it. However, as Lin Duo led them into the void, they heard the conversation as they stood in the void. Although it was a conversation, it was actually Zichen talking and chasing after him. Piesa, a high-level cultivator, was running and listening. He didn't respond at all. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was actually true. An initial-level cultivator was chasing a high-level cultivator. Piesa was in a sorry state. He was covered in blood and his aura was weak. But when he sensed the arrival of reinforcements, he regained his spirit and laughed. Come quickly. Zichen has a treasure on him. It's even more powerful than the golden bell. Zichen, who originally had a smile on his face, now had an ugly expression on his face. Previously, he had felt that there was a problem, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was. He ignored Lin Duo's soul. Lin Duo had gone to look for someone. Pico held the golden bell in his hand. His aura was very weak. It was obvious that he would not be able to hold on for long. However, Zichen couldn't kill him because everyone was surrounding him. What did you just say? I didn't hear you clearly. Piesa tidied up his blood-stained clothes and tried to speak as calmly as possible. Do you want to have a heart-to-heart talk with me? I'll wait for you here. Come closer. Come here, my ass! Zichen was so angry that he wanted to bite someone. If he stopped now, he would be courting death. He turned around and ran. Don't run! Look at me, I'm about to die. Hang in there! Piesa caught up with him from behind. Just like that, the tables were turned. Zichen didn't say anything. He just kept running, not forgetting to recover his energy. Wait, don't go. Weren't you shouting that you wanted to kill me? Now that I'm here, don't go. Piesa followed behind, holding the golden bell tightly in his hand. At the moment, he was also using words to mock Zichen, not caring about his reputation as a higher-realm cultivator. In the void, many people were listening and were speechless. This guy is really shameless. He was running just now, but now he's acting wildly just because he has more people, Alva said with a look of disdain. What should we do now? The Qian brothers were dumbfounded. Now, Zichen was running and the others were chasing. With their strength and means, they couldn't stop everyone. Follow him first and wait and see, Luo Xiao said. Luo Xiao said from the side. Perhaps only the City Lord of Peace City could stop this situation. Kid, leave the thing behind! An initial realm cultivator blocked Zichen's path with a cold gaze. Scram! Zichen roared angrily. His speed did not decrease as he directly charged forward. If he dared to stop, the people behind him would definitely catch up. Bang! He crashed into the initial realm cultivator without slowing down at all. The initial realm cultivator was sent flying by Zichen. As he was sent flying, the initial realm cultivator coughed up blood and a look of shock appeared on his face. Both of them were at the same realm, but the result of the collision was so shocking. Those who stop me will die! Zichen's eyes were full of killing intent. Luin Duo had brought so many people here for the item on him. Not to mention how many people were here to watch the show, the people with the golden bells alone wouldn't let him go. Especially the young man who had schemed against him earlier. He was now eyeing him covetously. Therefore, after releasing his powerful soul power, Zichen deliberately avoided the people with the golden bells. Stop! A saber light came from the front, chopping towards Zichen in the air. After shattering the blade light with a punch, Zichen's expression became even colder. Don't say I didn't warn you! At this moment, a sneer was heard. You still want to threaten everyone at this point? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Just as this voice was heard, another initial realm cultivator blocked his way. This person was none other than Jeffron, who had been defeated by Zichen previously. He stood in front of Zichen and sneered at Zichen. I was careless last time and was ambushed by you. Watch how I kill you now! He pointed forward with one hand, and the void around Zichen fluctuated. Energy similar to flowing water appeared out of thin air and turned into a large hand that grabbed at Zichen. Whoosh! Zichen instantly accelerated and dodged the attack. Jeffron, get lost! I don't want to kill you! Zichen was really angry, but he restrained himself for the sake of his brother. Humph! Come at me if you dare! Jeffron snorted disdainfully and attacked again, this time with an even fiercer attack. While Zichen used the thunder escape technique to dodge, he also shouted, Jeffron, tell your brother to retreat quickly, or it will be a life-and-death battle. There was no response, and Jeffron seemed to be absent. Come at me if you dare. Let's see who will die today. Jeffron's eyes became extremely cold. Today, I will kill you. He attacked again and again, blocking Zichen's path. Zichen shouted twice more, but Jeffron still did not respond. A murderous intent flashed in Zichen's eyes, and he pointed at his forehead. Buzz! With a tremor, the golden soul sword flew out of Zichen's sea of consciousness and directly attacked Jeffron. No one could block such an attack. Even Piesa could not, let alone Jeffron. The sword light entered his sea of consciousness, and the sneer on his face froze. The energy surrounding his body disappeared instantly, and his body fell into the void. He had lost his vitality. Instant kill! Brother! Chapter 49:13. Just as the golden sword light killed Jeffrey Yang, the expressions of the other initial realm cultivators who were approaching changed drastically. Jeffrin was killed in a single exchange. They would have done the same if they were in his place. A berserk Heaven's Choice realm aura surged from behind. It was Jeffrey. He was angry. Jeffrey had been watching the show and completely disdained Zichen's warning. He didn't think that Zichen could do anything to his younger brother. In the current situation, if Zichen dared to pause, someone would instantly catch up. The result was obvious. Although his younger brother was defeated last time, it was no problem for him to stop Zichen for a moment. Moreover, as a Heaven's Choice realm cultivator, he naturally wouldn't go up himself. That would be a loss of face. There were still many Heaven's Choice realm cultivators around, but most of them were here to watch the show. They were curious about the so-called treasure, and wouldn't go so far as to directly take it. Unexpectedly, his younger brother was killed in a single exchange. He was furious, but because he was watching from afar, he was far away from Zichen. It would be difficult for him to quickly catch up to Zichen. "Stop him for me!" Geoffrey angrily shouted. "Whoever can stop him will be rewarded with a complete Heaven's Choice army." A complete Heaven's Choice army was a truly valuable item in this world. It must be known that the broken swords Zichen obtained were also Heaven's Choice grade, but they were all broken, so their power was reduced. But a complete one was different. It was extraordinarily powerful. The ring in Zichen's hand was a Heaven's Choice grade. Even Pieser, with his powerful physical body, couldn't shatter it. With such a tempting reward, there were naturally people eager to try. Some initial realm cultivators who had stopped moving forward immediately rushed towards Zichen with greed in their eyes. Seeing these people, Zichen didn't try to dissuade them because it was meaningless. These people wanted to use their lives to exchange for the reward, so there was no need to let them live. Killing intent flashed in his eyes and the golden sword light appeared in his sea of consciousness. Swish! The golden light shot forward like lightning and entered the sea of consciousness of an initial realm cultivator. That initial realm cultivator raised his head and fell into the void. He was dead. One! Zichen's sea of consciousness was shaking. Golden sword lights kept appearing, dazzling and powerful, spreading in all directions. In the face of such an attack, these initial realms who wanted the reward could not dodge at all and were hit one after another. Once the sword light entered the sea of consciousness, death was certain. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen initial realm cultivators had died. Everyone else stopped and looked at Zichen in horror. This killing power was simply too terrifying. Behind him, Arwa and the others were also shocked. They had not expected Zichen to have grown to such a level. Zichen rushed past, and everyone retreated in fear. The initial realm cultivators didn't dare to move forward, but the middle realm cultivators could. After a moment of hesitation, they decided to bet on Zichen's path. At the very front was Yusef, who had fought Zichen before. He was on the same team as Geoffrey, and he had lost to Zichen the last time, so he was working very hard to chase after him. He used the Heavenly Flame Devil Tiger. He didn't expect to kill Zichen. He only wanted to delay him for a moment, and let Geoffrey catch up. The killing intent in Zichen's eyes did not decrease. The golden sword light flashed and attacked Yusef. Facing this move, Yusef snorted. Soul power also appeared in his sea of consciousness, forming a light shield in front of him. Obviously, he was quite confident that he would be able to stop Zichen at this moment. Pieso saw this scene from behind and couldn't help but shake his head. Even he couldn't block Zichen's soul remembrance attack, let alone this middle realm cultivator? However, he had no intention of reminding the other party. If more people died in Peace City, it would only be good for Immortal Slaughter City. Moreover, looking at the current situation, it was clearly impossible for him to snatch the light sword. Therefore, the more people Zichen offended, the less likely it was for him to survive. Now, he only hoped that Zichen would die. As the golden sword light approached, Yusef sneered. The light shield protected him, while the Heavenly Flame Devil Tiger charged at Zichen. There was a difference of 1 round between the two sides. He was confident that he could block Zichen. At this moment, with a crack, the soul light shield instantly shattered. The golden sword light didn't slow down and entered Yusef's sea of consciousness. Yusef's expression froze, and the Heavenly Flame Devil Tiger that was charging forward dissipated into thin air. Zichen didn't slow down and flew over Yusef's head. Yusef, who had turned into a corpse, fell into the void. When the other Middle Realms saw this, their expressions changed again, and they no longer dared to move forward. A powerful Middle Realm cultivator was killed in a single exchange. How terrifying was his soul power! They could only watch as Zichen flew past them. At this moment, not to mention the Middle Realms, even the High Realms were shocked. Originally, there were 3 High Realms blocking Zichen's escape route, but now they were hesitating. Heaven's chosen soldiers were good things, but they were more important than their lives. It would be good if they could block Zichen, but what if they couldn't? They would lose their lives. At this moment, everyone had to look at Zichen seriously. To be able to chase Piesa to the point of asking for help, he was indeed extraordinary. Alva and the others who followed behind were also shocked. Zichen's battle prowess had already far surpassed theirs, and was not any weaker than Helen's. After all, Zichen was only at the initial realm. Geoffrey was still chasing, and when he saw that no one was stopping Zichen, he shouted angrily. Further behind, many Heaven's Chosen realms were watching the show. Someone immediately laughed. Geoffrey, you can't catch up for a long time. No, don't chase, lest you make a fool of yourself. That's right. A dignified Heaven's Chosen realm cultivator can't even catch up to a trial realm cultivator. This is a big loss of face. Geoffrey was usually very rude and unreasonable. Naturally, there were people who didn't like him and deliberately mocked him. Geoffrey's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He used an unknown secret technique and his speed instantly doubled. He quickly closed the distance between him and Zichen. Zichen felt the abnormality behind him and his expression changed. At this moment, he discovered the aura left behind and his eyes lit up. The next moment, he sped up and saw the fragment. Die! At this moment, Geoffrey attacked from afar. The void instantly lit up and a palm print appeared above Zichen's head. A terrifying pressure filled the surroundings and affected Zichen's speed. Looking at the fragment not far away, Zichen gritted his teeth and decided to take this attack head-on. At this moment, a figure suddenly approached and the gravity around them changed. Zichen felt the pressure lessen and Boss Helen slashed at the sky with her broadsword. The broadsword light met the palm print and exploded. A powerful aura surged and Helen flew backward, blood flowing through the void. Helen's obstruction bought time for Zichen. He quickly entered the fragment world. Although the others didn't dare to stop Zichen, they still followed. When they saw Zichen enter the fragment world, they were all stunned. There is indeed a fragment world. Go in quickly. There might be something good inside. Recently, there have been many high-level worlds appearing. This time, it might be a high-level world too. Chapter 49-14. Entering this world again, Zichen sped up and ran forward. During this time, he sensed the remaining divine runes in this world. Only by luring them in and diverting everyone's attention would Zichen be able to escape. Everyone followed him. When they saw the full picture of this world, they all exclaimed. There were many buildings and caves halfway up the mountain. It should have been a large sect in the past. As expected, they were no longer interested in Zichen. Instead, they all landed in the remaining buildings and caves, looking for possible opportunities. When Geoffrey came in, he was too late. He could no longer sense Zichen's aura. All he could see were collapsed buildings and people looking for treasures. Zichen! Geoffrey shouted. His killing intent stirred up the sky. The whole space was trembling. Those who came in later all went around Geoffrey and turned into flowing lights to look for treasures. Helen also came in. Because it was too short, she had not broken through. She had blocked Geoffrey's attack and was already injured. No matter where you are hiding, I will find you and kill you! Geoffrey gritted his teeth. He couldn't allow his brother to die without knowing the reason behind it. Before that, I will collect some interest. He suddenly attacked. The sky darkened as a palm print covered the sky. Under the palm print, there was a person standing. It was the injured Helen. She did not expect Geoffrey to suddenly attack her. Helen's face was pale. She mobilized the energy around her, and the heavy saber in her hand released a dazzling light. She slashed the saber at the sky. The gravity in the space was constantly changing. However, there was a difference of one level between them. In addition, Helen was already injured. The saber radiance dissipated as soon as it touched the palm print. The palm print's power did not diminish. It slapped toward Helen's head. Helen could only look on helplessly as the palm print fell. She was already powerless to dodge. Right at this moment, a black shadow appeared beside Helen. He gently raised his hand towards the sky and made a gesture of lifting up. Without a powerful aura, the palm print hovered in the sky 100 feet above his head. It could not move forward. In the next moment, the palm print dissipated. The surging energy dispersed. After his attack was blocked, Jeffrey's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, when he saw who it was, his expression changed drastically. Not far away, the expressions of some of the onlookers also changed. No matter what you say, Peace City is a place where reason prevails. Otherwise, how could it have developed until now? The other party looked at Jeffrey. You can't throw away what you have because of a few unreasonable troublemakers. Jeffrey immediately cupped his fist towards the other party, and all of his killing intent vanished. This was because the person who had come was Black Dragon. The Black Dragon could represent the Order of Peace City. Black Dragon turned his head to look at the side of the sky where Piker and Lin Duo were standing. It's just a small trial realm, but it has already turned our Peace City into a mess. It seems like the Immortal Slayer City is still better in terms of the human heart. I don't dare! Piesa hurriedly cupped his fists, and so did Lin Duo. It was necessary to show respect to such an expert. Since you're also from Peace City, I'll spare your life if you leave the golden bell behind. Black Dragon's tone gradually turned cold. Put down the golden bell and leave quickly. My lord, this isn't appropriate. Piesa's expression changed. He didn't expect this lord to want his golden bell. What's wrong? Black Dragon asked with a smile. According to the rules, the item should belong to whoever obtains it. Piesa cupped his fists. My lord, you can't break the rules. This is the rule of our Peace City. It doesn't apply to the people of the Immortal Slayer City, Black Dragon said. Moreover, the rules are used to protect those who abide by them, not to provide shelter for those who break them. My lord Black Dragon, aren't you worried that our Lord Bunnan will come to seek justice for bullying me, a trial realm cultivator from the Immortal Slayer City? Piesa's attitude suddenly became unyielding. Black Dragon's gaze gradually turned cold. Is my attitude too good? Am I giving you face? Seeing that Black Dragon was angry, Piesa didn't say anything else. He immediately took out the golden bell, put it down, and turned to leave. He didn't kill Zichin, and he didn't even get the golden bell. This time, he really suffered a great loss. The golden bell floated there, but no one dared to go up and take it. This was the deterrence of Black Dragon. Black Dragon glanced at Jeffrey. It's yours. Consider it compensation for this incident. Actually, you don't deserve any compensation. You brought this upon yourself. Then Black Dragon looked at Helen and frowned slightly. Your realm is too low. How can you protect the people you want to protect? I know, Helen replied. This world isn't small. There should be a lot of opportunities. Everyone, let's go and look for opportunities. Black Dragon, who had spoken, also walked forward. He was also somewhat interested in this world. Jeffrey took the golden bell. No matter how unwilling he was, he didn't dare to say anything at the moment. Black Dragon had already determined his position. Although he gave him the golden bell as compensation, he obviously didn't think he was in the right. The young man with the largest golden bell stared ahead. No one knew what he was thinking. Your talent is not bad, but you have to know your limits. You have to think about the rules of Peace City, and you have to respect them. Otherwise, one day, when you want to use them, you'll find that you've become that guy. Black Dragon suddenly appeared beside the young man. The young man knew that Black Dragon was reminding him of what happened last time. He smiled carelessly and said, I can't stand hypocrites, so I want to know what he got. Don't worry, I know my limits. Even if he was a coward last time, he wouldn't have killed anyone. You're on your own. Black Dragon's figure disappeared. Seeing Black Dragon disappear, the young man scratched his head and sneered. You're teaching me a lesson. The city lord isn't here. Do you think you're the city lord? Clang. He took out the golden bell and shook it. Ripples spread out, and a large number of buildings disappeared. Cries of alarm rang out. The nearby people quickly fled. An initial realm cultivator was too slow and lost his flesh in an instant, turning into a skeleton. The young man smiled disdainfully. The young man held back. The skeleton turned into a ray of light and flew away. Although he didn't die, he was heavily injured. The others looked at the young man in fear. The young man mocked. "The rules of Peace City don't apply here. Go die far away!" Hearing this, the crowd scattered. Zichen entered the largest chain of divine patterns. This place was relatively well preserved, so perhaps there would be good things. Most importantly, if Jeffrey caught up to him, the divine patterns here could help him block some of the attacks. After entering this divine pattern, Zichen took out the black stone. He knew that it was a treasure. When exploring, Zichen would always bring it with him. Once there was something good, it would guide him. Zichen didn't recognize some of the divine patterns, but this didn't stop him from walking through them. Because one method could lead to all other methods. Borrowing the power of the divine seal, he walked through the veins of the divine patterns without damaging them in the slightest. This place was indeed very well preserved. Even if the world was shattered, the divine patterns were still intact. Zichen was very sure that there was an opportunity here. Chapter 49:15. The divine patterns here were complete, and had not been damaged at all. It was obvious that no one had come in after so many years. The spiritual energy here was rich, and hundreds of flowers were in full bloom. The short trees meandered, and their roots were as strong as dragons. The environment was quiet and beautiful. Zichen saw people here. Dead people. Many dead people. They were all women, wearing pure white clothes that were untainted by even a speck of dust. Every single one of their appearances were beautiful and unmatched, standing in different places. Some of them had peaceful smiles on their faces, while others were gathered together and seemed to be conversing. It looked like a frozen picture, and Zichen was like a stranger who had barged into the picture. They were all dead. Before they died, there should be no warning, and they still maintained their original expressions. Zichen could not imagine what kind of power would be able to kill them if the divine inscriptions were not activated. Moreover, they did not notice. Their expressions were calm and normal. It was obvious that they had all died suddenly. Zichen looked at a beauty up close. Under her long eyelashes, a pair of bright black eyes seemed to contain spirit. It was as if she was sleeping and could wake up at any time. In his perception, she had long stopped breathing and heartbeat. She was like a real statue. He gently reached out and touched her gauze. Just as he touched her, it was as if he had encountered an illusion. The woman's gauze scattered like ashes. Her face also began to disintegrate, and her delicate body disappeared. A gust of wind suddenly blew. As the wind blew, all the beautiful women with different expressions disappeared. The flowers and plants were still there, and they bloomed even more brightly. However, the people who had been standing here before were all gone. Zichen's heart skipped a beat. These people had been dead for countless years. This place was like a sealed place. With his appearance, the seal was triggered, and the dead people were completely turned into ashes. The flowers and plants were still there. They swayed slowly as the breeze blew. They absorbed the spiritual light and grew. Zichen looked at the flowers and plants. Countless years had passed. Why had these flowers and plants not become spiritual herbs? Even if they were to be counted by age, they should have become divine plants long ago. Unfortunately, they were not. They were no different from ordinary flowers and plants. They were not helpful for cultivation. Looking ahead, Zichen saw a small path paved with jade stones. Following the path, there was a lake 100 zhang away. The lake water was sparkling with a green light, filled with dense spiritual energy. The surface of the lake was very calm, without a single ripple. Zichen looked towards the center of the lake and vaguely saw a shadow gliding across the bottom of the lake. Is there life in the lake? Zichen's expression changed. How powerful was a creature that had existed for countless years? His soul remembrance spread out, but he didn't find anything. It seemed to be a flash of a reflection. The lake water was clear and radiated light. It was rich in spiritual energy and looked like real spiritual water. Zichen was about to walk along the path when suddenly, a light flashed from the bottom of the lake. It was as if a pair of eyes from the bottom of the lake had opened and looked at him. Zichen's hair instantly stood on end. His body retreated several feet in the air, and the thunder escape technique was displayed to the extreme. First, there were the lifelike corpses, then there were the strange flowers and plants that couldn't be transformed, and there was also the abnormality at the bottom of the lake. Everything here was strange. Zichen used the divine rune and looked around, but he didn't find anything strange. Just as he was about to take a detour, the lake water suddenly surged. It was as if there was a powerful force gushing out from the lake. In an instant, the lake water soared into the sky, forming a huge wave that drowned Zichen. Zichen held the black stone tightly and quickly retreated, wanting to avoid it. "Come here!" An illusory voice suddenly rang out. It was like the ethereal voice of a ghost. This voice came from the bottom of the lake. Could it be that those people died silently because there was some kind of ominous thing at the bottom of the lake? Zichen retreated even faster. Only this could explain why so many people died in an instant when the divine rune wasn't activated. It was the thing in the lake that killed them. Now Zichen planned to retreat. This place was too strange. He came here to take refuge and look for opportunities. He couldn't lose his life here. If worse came to worst, he could lure Jeffrey in and let him clear the way here. Zichen didn't know that Jeffrey had obtained Piesos' golden bell. Otherwise, he wouldn't have retreated. With the golden bell, Jeffrey countered him in all aspects. If the two sides met again, Zichen would die. The black stone in Zichen's hand didn't react. Instead, the divine rune that he had refined before started to tremble. A strange force spread out, affecting the speed of Zichen's retreat. The next moment, the huge wave spread forward, enveloping Zichen. When he came to his senses, Zichen was already in the middle of the lake. His body was sinking uncontrollably. It was as if someone was dragging his feet and dragging him to the bottom of the lake. Zichen's face was full of fear. He kept struggling, but there was no reaction. His strength seemed to have been forcefully sealed. The divine rune floated above his head, creating ripples that isolated the lake water. Since the black stone didn't react, the divine rune's abnormality was his greatest comfort. He tried to swim up, but there was no reaction. Instead, he sank even faster. "Come here!" The voice sounded again, right below him. Zichen nodded and looked down. It was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. Suddenly, he saw a cold light in front of him. A person was rapidly approaching him. Zichen's expression changed. He mobilized his body's strength. Buzz! The divine rune surged, creating ripples in the lake. The approaching figure brushed past him. Their eyes met. Zichen saw a beautiful face. This was also a corpse, similar to the one he saw before. It was just that the surging lake water had brought her here. She wasn't a living being. But it was still scary enough. Then, a few more corpses passed by him, drifting away with the ripples. Zichen gradually calmed down. The summoning voice also disappeared. It was like a hallucination. The divine rune was still glowing, separating the lake water. His body was still falling. After falling for a long time, Zichen suddenly saw light. He saw a glowing divine rune array at the center of the lake. It seemed to be suppressing something. And in the center of the divine rune array, there was an even smaller array. At this moment, there was a pair of bright objects on the array. It was a pair of eyes. The bright eyes didn't have any emotions. They even had an aura of seeing through the mortal world. The moment Zichen saw those eyes, he felt that all the secrets in his heart had been seen through. What kind of eyes were those? Celestial eyes? A sense of extreme danger welled up in his heart. Zichen wanted to avoid it, but his body was out of his control. Chapter 49:16. The divine rune diagram released an intense light that illuminated the entire bottom of the lake. The pair of celestial eyes seemed to have come alive, becoming even more bizarre. Zichen's hair stood on end. He felt as though he had been pierced through with a single glance. He wanted to circulate his energy, but he didn't succeed. He couldn't control his body at all, and his energy seemed to have been sealed. Occasionally, corpses would pass by him. They were all beautiful white-robed women, like fairies flying in the water. Their eyes were wide open, as though they were alive and could attack at any moment. Buzz! A powerful aura surged from the bottom of the lake, giving Zichin a strong sense of danger. No matter how much he struggled, Zichin couldn't react. He landed on the divine rune diagram. Other than the boundless killing intent, he didn't feel anything else. The bottom of the lake was very large, and the divine rune diagram covered the entire bottom of the lake. Zichin was currently at a corner. The divine rune diagram had been fully activated. Under the lake's reflection, it was like a bright sword chi, but there was no real danger. Zichin didn't panic. Instead, he observed the diagram. Back then, he had obtained the Tao fruit and the inheritance of the Tao of divine runes. When Zichin saw the divine rune diagram clearly, his expression changed. This is the divine spiritualization rune. This was an ancient divine rune that was very difficult to grasp. It was a peak existence, and its true purpose was to suppress and refine. Zichin looked at the huge divine rune diagram. It appeared here, obviously suppressing some terrifying undying thing. While suppressing it, it would also refine it. It would take a long time for it to be destroyed. This divine rune was sacred, and its aura was calm. It didn't feel ferocious. Zichin walked on the divine rune diagram. The divine rune flickered, but there were no abnormal fluctuations. Zichin felt strands of sacred aura above the divine rune diagram, gathering at the core of the divine rune diagram. And that ferocious feeling came from the bottom of the divine rune, from the bottom of the lake. It is indeed the divine spiritualization rune, but it is so huge. It definitely wasn't condensed by a single person. Zichin walked forward in the formation patterns and examined the ancient and exquisite patterns. With his current level of attainment, he couldn't even carve out a simple corner of them. The divine art spirit rune seals everything. Once one gets close to it, one's strength will be suppressed. It's normal that I can't sense anything now. Zichin was no longer flustered. He calmly dealt with everything, deliberately avoiding that pair of strange eyes. The divine art spiritualization rune wouldn't have such a thing. Clearly, on the basis of this rune, there was a second rune that was similar to the spirit gathering rune. Zichin had a few guesses in his heart. Dong! The ground suddenly trembled, and the glowing divine art spirit inscriptions vanished. A ray of white light surged out from below, passing through the divine art spirit inscriptions and heading upwards. A strong sense of impending death filled Zichen's heart. Zichen's expression instantly changed. 1. The black stone in his hand shook slightly, and the spiritual light that was about to approach his body disappeared. Ripples appeared in the lake, layer by layer. Zichin saw the light rush out of the lake and disappear. Could it be that ray of light? Zichin was shocked. He stared at the divine art spirit inscriptions, but the divine art spirit inscriptions had returned to normal. Previously, when the light appeared, he clearly felt that there was a flaw in the divine art spirit inscriptions. Now, the flaw had been fixed. Luckily! Zichin glanced at the black stone and secretly rejoiced. That ray of light might be the main reason for the mysterious death of the female corpse here. Luckily, the black stone had helped him resolve the crisis. That ray of light was too terrifying. This time, the black stone had blocked it for him. If the black stone couldn't block it the next time it appeared, he might lose his life here. He hurriedly glanced at the divine art spirit inscriptions and gave up on the idea of comprehending the divine art here. He went to the core. This was the point where all the spiritual energy gathered. It was also the point where the power was at the core. At this point, there was a small but even more complicated and precise divine art spirit inscriptions. That pair of strange eyes was floating at this point. Taking a closer look, it wasn't a real pair of eyes, but a manifestation of spiritual energy. When Zichen took a closer look at that pair of eyes, his vision suddenly blurred. It was as if he saw a bottomless abyss. One. The black stone vibrated again, and Zichen's blurred eyes returned to normal. I've actually been trapped. Could this be? Zichen was shocked. He didn't dare to look at that pair of eyes again. Instead, he looked at the divine art spirit inscriptions below them. All the energy that was broken down by the divine art spirit inscriptions was refined by the divine art spirit inscriptions a second time, and then reformed into that pair of eyes. Could this be the immortal eyes recorded in the divine art spirit inscriptions, immortal spiritual eyes? In the inheritance that Zichen had obtained, the divine art spirit inscriptions had a mystical immortal eye apart from the divine clock and Tao sword. It was just like those eye techniques in the saint spirit domain, but of a much higher level, and could see through the divine art spirit inscriptions. If the divine art spirit domain belonged to the immortal spell domain, then the immortal spiritual eyes naturally belonged to the immortal spell domain. This eye technique wasn't innate. It could only be born through various coincidences and opportunities. Looking at this pair of immortal eyes, Zichen guessed that it was the immortal spiritual eyes. And to be able to form the immortal spiritual eyes, he believed that the ferocious creature suppressed at the bottom of the lake was definitely an extraordinary existence. Zichen even suspected that in this place that was completely enveloped by the divine art spirit inscriptions, these women who had died countless years ago were all there to protect this divine art spirit inscriptions, as well as the immortal spiritual eyes. He walked forward, not daring to look at the immortal eyes for fear that he would lose himself again. There were no other divine inscriptions guarding the surroundings, so Zichen walked closer. That's most likely the case. He still didn't dare to be certain, but it was worth a gamble. He reached out his hand and touched the immortal eyes. 1. The immortal eyes trembled, and as if they were being guided, they turned into a ray of light and disappeared from Zichen's palm. Zichen cried out in shock. Something rushed into his eyes, as if he had been attacked inexplicably. Immediately, tears of blood flowed out. 1. The divine imprint that the old man had left for Zichen began to tremble violently. Strands of divine inscription power appeared from within, slowly entering Zichen's eyes. This divine inscription power turned into a cooling sensation, alleviating the piercing pain in Zichen's eyes. Strands of divine imprint that the old man had spent his entire life condensing completely turned into energy and disappeared. Divine imprints were supreme treasures that every divine inscriptionist had to condense. As the master of the divine inscriptions, the grade of the divine imprint that the old man had condensed could be imagined. Right now, it had disappeared, turning into pure divine inscription power and entering Zichen's eyes. The piercing pain gradually disappeared, and 2 streaks of blood flowed down Zichen's cheeks. Chapter 49:17. In front of Zichen's eyes, a clear diagram of the divine veins appeared. He could see every detail of the diagram clearly. He could see every part of the divine veins at the bottom of the lake, every pattern, and every change in energy. It was as if he could see through the surface and see the essence of the divine veins. He was ecstatic. Even if this was not the celestial spiritual eye, it was still an incredible eye technique. The divine seal that the old man gave him disappeared, and its power merged into his eyes. It was as if it had become one with his body. This was a good thing. He did not need to activate the divine seal anymore. At this moment, Zichen noticed that a few of the patterns had dimmed. There were some problems with the connection. The terrifying light from before came from these places. Zichen walked closer. He wanted to take a look at the patterns before leaving. Suddenly, his gaze pierced through the diagram of the divine veins and saw the bottom of the lake. It was the real bottom of the lake. There was no light in the surroundings. It was dark. And in the endless darkness, there was a faint light. When Zichen looked carefully, his expression changed. The light came from a skeleton. It was the skeleton of an extremely huge beast. As if it sensed Zichen's prying, the beast skeleton suddenly released a murderous aura. It broke through the divine veins and rushed towards Zichen. The bone-chilling cold made Zichen shiver. It was as if there was a sharp edge on his body. This was the monster sealed at the bottom of the lake? The monster that caused the deaths of everyone here? Zichen retreated, trying to avoid the murderous aura. However, the murderous aura closed in on him. It was as if it was real. Whoosh! At this moment, a spiritual light suddenly appeared and blocked all the murderous aura. It was the spirit of slaughter that was born from the lightning controlling art. It destroyed and absorbed all the murderous aura. Zichen was shocked. He did not expect the spirit of slaughter to have such an effect. He looked down and saw that the skeleton was no longer releasing any murderous aura. The spirit of slaughter floated in front of him. Its light was brighter than before. It seemed to have grown a little. Break the formation and get all the murderous aura out! Zichen seemed to have seen the growth path of the spirit of slaughter. However, just as this thought appeared, Zichen dispelled it. He would never forget that mysterious light from before. If he was unlucky, he might have died silently. It was best not to take such a risk. However, he was somewhat unwilling to leave just like that. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he had an idea. I can place the spirit of massacre in the immortal spirit well, that way it can absorb the spiritual energy inside. Zichen's soul remembrance moved and the slaughter spirit flew forward, slowly landing at the core of the divine glyph. Zichen watched nervously, worried that the slaughter spirit would not be able to absorb it. After all, it was no longer pure killing intent. 1. Who would have thought that just as he placed it, the spirit of massacre would tremble slightly, transmitting a joyful emotion, and begin to actively devour the spiritual energy. It was like a sponge meeting water, absorbing it crazily. Because the absorption speed was too fast, the divine rune diagram was automatically activated and quickly refined the beast's bone. It's working! Zichen's eyes lit up even more. He saw that the beast's bone's luster was dimming due to the refinement of the divine rune diagram. Zichen guessed that many years ago, this should have been a living mutated beast. With the suppression of the divine rune diagram and countless years of refinement, its life had been obliterated. Its flesh and blood had dried up and disappeared, leaving behind only this set of bones. At that time, the beast's bone should have released a strong light, but with the passage of time, the power of the beast's bone had also dissipated. Finally, it became what Zichen saw in front of him. He believed that in the end, all the bones would disappear. To be suppressed here, the beast's bone must have had an extraordinary background when it was alive. Even after death, it still had its dignity. A weak existence like the slaughter spirit forcibly devoured its spiritual energy, arousing its instinctive resistance. 1. The bones trembled and boundless killing intent appeared through the divine rune, transforming into a ferocious mutated beast. It had no consciousness and was incomparably cruel. It was just the manifestation of pure killing intent. Shwa! At this moment, the slaughter spirit voluntarily left the core of the divine rune and flew towards the mutated beast, piercing its head in an instant. In an instant, the killing intent dissipated. Zichen felt his body become colder and colder. However, this killing intent could not affect the slaughter spirit, and was instantly devoured. When the last strand of killing intent was devoured, the slaughter spirit flew back to the core of the divine rune diagram. It did not need Zichen's control and continued to devour the beast's bone. The divine rune diagram sped up and forcibly refined the beast's bone. An angry roar came from the beast's bone, as if it saw this as a provocation. The killing intent appeared again. Shwa! The slaughter spirit did not need to be called and came by itself. Instant kill, devour, return. The actions were done in one breath. The light in Zichen's eyes dimmed. He was extremely shocked. This slaughter spirit seemed to be born to suppress killing intent. He felt that the terrifying killing intent could be easily dealt with by it. At this moment, the two sides were like two mutated beasts, one big and one small, facing each other. However, the big one was locked in a cage, while the small one was outside shouting, provoking, and occasionally attacking. As expected, as the slaughter spirit devoured, the third strand of killing intent appeared. Zichen was still frightened, but he was easily killed and devoured by the slaughter spirit. If this continued, it would not take long for the skeleton to be completely refined. Just as the fourth manifestation of the killing intent also failed, a bright light suddenly appeared within the bones, and instantly rippled out. Buzz! The black stone in Zichen's hand trembled and blocked the light for him. However, the slaughter spirit in front of him did not react at all. Seems like it only works on living things. Zichen was relieved. He planned to go up and see what was going on. After all, there were many people here. Zichen went up. This time, he was not blocked. During this time, Zichen also saw the women swimming because of the ripples in the lake. They were indeed dead. There were no signs of life. Zichen poked his head out of the lake and looked around. No one had come yet. Jeffrey is a Heaven's Choice realm cultivator. How about luring him to the bottom of the lake? Zichen stood outside the lake, and a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Jeffrey and the skeleton were fighting. When both sides were injured, he would take advantage of the situation. However, after thinking about it, he gave up. The slaughter spirit could devour them. It was better not to complicate matters. After all, Jeffrey was a Heaven's Choice realm cultivator. There was a huge gap between them. Even so, Zichen still planned to go outside and see the situation. After all, this place was not too hidden. Walking into the divine pattern diagram, Zichen's eyes flashed. All the divine patterns were clearly visible. When he went out, it was much easier than when he came in. Moreover, his vision was already able to see the outside world through the divine patterns. He did not need to go out completely. Dong! Suddenly, a bell rang. Waves of divine patterns spread out, and a large number of divine patterns disappeared. Chapter 49:18. There were a total of 5 people with the golden bell, and only one of them was coming over. The other party held the golden bell and destroyed everything along the way, rummaging through the places where the divine runes appeared. If this continued, they would soon reach this place. Zichen was a little hesitant. He wasn't sure if he should retreat in this situation. If he went back to the bottom of the lake, would the other party discover him? At this moment, a powerful wave suddenly came from the side. As the wave passed, everything around it was destroyed. The restrictions in front of Zichen all disappeared. The existence with the golden bell was stunned. Zichen was also stunned. The two of them looked at each other. They were only a few hundred feet apart. It seems that my luck is good. A young man flew over from the side and looked at Zichen. I'm curious. What good thing did you get? Take it out and let me see. The other party had the largest golden bell, and it was also the most powerful one. Swish! Zichen turned and ran. Obviously, he wouldn't take out the Dao sword, and he wouldn't fight with the other party here. You want to leave? The young man sneered and chased after him. The high realm with the small golden bell hesitated for a moment and followed. Zichen ran into the depths. When he passed by the lake, he didn't look in that direction. The two existences who followed him didn't pay attention to the lake and chased after him. Not long after the two left, another group of people arrived. The leader was a high realm cultivator. My lord, are they all inside? One of the cultivators in the middle level of the trial asked. Previously, he had been hiding nearby and had seen Zichen. Let's go in and take a look. Maybe there are other treasures to pick up. The high realm cultivator flew into the depths. He passed by the lake but didn't check it out. Without the corpses, the lake looked very ordinary. Then, wave after wave of existences came in and flew into the depths. They all took the initiative to pass by the lake and enter the depths. Humph! With a cold snort, Jeffrey's figure appeared. He was alone. Zichen, I'll kill you this time! As the only Heaven's Choice realm cultivator, and with the golden bell, he was invincible here. He walked in and glanced at the lake, but didn't pay any attention to it. It's over! It's over! Even Jeffrey went in. It's all over now. Isn't he worried about Lord Black Dragon? Alva appeared outside the restriction with a worried expression. Helen looked into the distance and said, "Wait for me outside. I'll go in and take a look." Geoffrey was already powerful, and with the golden bell, he could be said to be invincible. If he wanted to kill, everyone would die. So Helen walked in alone. "What should we do?" Alva looked at the others. Everyone obviously knew what Helen meant. She wanted them to stay because she wanted them to live. "You guys stay here. The two of us will go in." The Chien brothers suddenly spoke up. "The last time we were beaten half to death, it was Zichen who stood up for us. Even if we're going to die now, at least we need a witness. We can report to Lord Black Dragon afterwards." "What do you mean by that? Am I, Alva, a coward?" Alva followed. "Even if you want a witness, I should be one. Even if I'm going to be beaten to death, I won't be alone on the road to hell." Luo Shao sneered. He looked at the bearded man next to him. "Hey, are we being despised? It's not me, it's you." The bearded man smiled and walked forward. "For so many years, our team has been back and forth, but I haven't seen many who are loyal. So, at this time, we can't not be loyal." Luo Shao followed, and a few of them ran into the depths together. They might not be of much help, but they could at least send themselves to death, right? And they might not die, because with someone else as a witness, Geoffrey might not dare to kill them. Zichen, who was running into the depths, used his soul power to sense behind him. The sudden appearance of the young man was somewhat unexpected, but it was not a bad thing. The other party chased after him and did not pay attention to the lake, which made Zichen feel relieved. He released his soul power and sensed that the others had also passed through the lake. It would not be too late for him to come back and collect it after the slaughter spirit absorbed all the killing intent. Now that he was going deeper, he might find something else. Zichen, who was moving forward, gradually found that something was wrong. In front of his vision, there were divine runes everywhere. Zichen suddenly stopped, his expression uncertain. In front of him was a small path with vegetation growing on both sides, but with the celestial spiritual eye, he saw divine runes everywhere. These divine runes looked more complicated than the ones at the bottom of the lake, overlapping and forming a chain of slaughtered divine runes. "Kid, let me see what kind of treasure you have!" The young man's voice came from behind. When Zichen stopped, the other party caught up. The golden bell in his hand was especially shining. Zichen turned his head and glanced at him. Clang! The bell rang, and layers of runes approached, carrying a killing intent that far surpassed the other golden bells. Zichen's Dao sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed forward. Sword chi formed by countless divine runes rushed out, cutting the divine runes. "Oh? It's actually such a treasure?" The young man's eyes lit up. When he attacked earlier, those who were close to him would be in trouble. The small sword seemed to be of a higher level than his golden bell. "You can hold back, taking it out only now," Zichen said. "Why fight with me here? There should be many good things in here." The young man raised the golden bell and said, "It's okay if you don't fight, but give me the sword." Zichen said, "I can give it to you, but you give me the golden bell. Take it as a trade. I also have something to protect myself." The young man's eyes flashed coldly. "Bargaining with me? Do you want to die?" As his voice fell, the golden bell in his hand shook again, and an even more terrifying divine rune aura surged out. Feeling the other party's killing intent, Zichen could only continue to use his Dao sword. Only such a treasure could block it. Otherwise, his body would probably be disintegrated by the divine runes, his flesh and bones separated. After destroying the divine runes again, Zichen looked at the light coming from afar. If he waited any longer, there would be more people with bad intentions. He could only turn around and thrust out his sword. His eyes flashed. This sword stabbed at the weakest part of the divine runes, but it did not completely destroy them. It only temporarily suppressed them. At this moment, a ball of light suddenly flew over like lightning, hitting Zichen's back. Puff! Zichen coughed up blood, and his body flew forward. In front of everyone's eyes, Zichen fell on the stone steps, and then quickly ran into the depths. The young man stood there, looking at Zichen running away, frowning slightly. Someone quickly went forward, following Zichen. However, just as they approached the stone steps, rays of light lit up one after another. Chapter 49-19. Chi. Chi. The divine glyph diagram rotated, and boundless killing intent surged. The existence that wanted to take advantage of the situation was immediately drowned by the attack. Treasure light flowed on the opponent's body, resisting the divine glyph diagram. The young man stood behind and watched. A hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. He clearly had the ability to disperse the divine glyph with a wave of his hand, but he did not move. Instead, he stood there and watched the show. Another existence with a golden bell approached. His gaze swept past the trapped trial realm and looked at the tree-lined path above. He had no intention of helping. The young man glanced back at him. "You want to go in?" The other's eyes flashed, but he did not speak. More people came from behind, but after seeing the two of them, they all stopped. "Look in front!" Suddenly, a cry of surprise sounded. The young man looked forward and found that at the end of the tree-lined path, a golden light had appeared. It was like a golden beam. This was naturally something good. He moved forward without hesitation. Dong! The bell rang, and the golden ripples spread forward. In an instant, countless divine glyph diagrams appeared on the tree-lined path, layer by layer, extending forward. Everything that Zichen could see with his celestial spiritual eye was now completely displayed. 1. A portion of the divine glyph disappeared. The existence that was trying to resist the divine glyph diagram was rescued, but his flesh and blood disappeared in an instant. The young man glanced at the skeleton and said coldly, "Zichen's things are mine. Don't do it again." With that, the young man moved forward. Above his head, the golden bell floated and vibrated continuously, letting out a clanging sound. The divine glyph that Zichen had avoided earlier appeared one by one and was then forcibly dissolved. The skeleton stood up again. Light flowed on its body, and new flesh grew. The people behind looked at the young man with the golden bell and were somewhat envious. With such a treasure on him, where in the world could he not go? Perhaps he could find many good things just by waving it around. Unfortunately, the golden bell had already recognized an owner. If they wanted to get it, they would have to defeat the young man. It seemed that the difficulty was not small. Everyone followed behind the young man and walked toward the tree-lined path. The divine glyph here had been dissolved, and there was no more danger. After walking through the tree-lined path, a huge square appeared in his field of vision. Above this square, there were floating specks of golden light, like golden beans, scattered in different places. At this moment, Zichen was approaching a spot of golden light. "Stop, that's mine!" The young man standing at the edge of the square shouted. "Are you an idiot? Isn't that enough for you?" Zichen turned around and glanced at him, his expression full of disdain. "You're courting death." Being looked down upon like this, the young man was furious. The golden bell in his hand shook again, and layers of ripples surged out. However, this time, the power of the golden bell was not displayed. Instead, a burst of energy suddenly fell on the golden bell from above. Shwa! The golden bell broke away from the young man's control and flew into the sky. The expression of the young man, who was incomparably arrogant, immediately changed. Without the golden bell, he, who had no understanding of the Tao of divine inscriptions, would find it difficult to move an inch in this place. He raised his head and looked at the golden bell. There was some light around the golden bell, like a spider web, surrounding the golden bell layer by layer. "What's going on?" The young man's expression was very ugly. Then, he stared at Zichen. "It's your doing, isn't it?" Zichen could not be bothered with the young man. At this moment, he was almost at the location of the second golden light. Zichen did not know what the golden light was, but it was definitely something good. It was best to get it first. "Ha ha, you're in trouble too!" The young man suddenly laughed because above Zichen's head, the path sword from before was also trapped there. Laugh all you want. Let's see if you can still laugh when the others come. Zichen glanced at the young man sarcastically and took the second golden light. This place was full of divine inscriptions and was very terrifying. It was not easy to get the golden light. As for the divine inscriptions above his head, they were not strong. They were just a type of sealing divine inscriptions that could not be broken by force. When the time was up, they would disappear. Previously, when Zichen arrived, he saw many golden lights and was worried that he would not have a chance when the others came. Therefore, he did not hesitate to use the path sword, intending to quickly break the seal and collect some before going deeper. It was fine even if it was temporarily suppressed. Unexpectedly, in his carelessness, he triggered the sealing divine inscriptions, causing the path sword to be uncontrollably suppressed. Previously, he had deliberately angered the young man to lure him to use the golden bell. This way, he would have to consider the sealed golden bell and could only wander around here, not attacking him. Then, a few more people came. Those who had the golden bell almost reflexively used the golden bell and were sealed one by one. They could not be as calm as Zichen and still have the mood to collect the golden light. Instead, they tried to find a way to get the golden bell back. Such a precious treasure must not be lost. Of course, Zichen would not remind them that the more they tried, the longer it would take to seal them. As for the others, some went for the golden light, while others wandered around the sealed golden bell. They all knew that it was something good. Perhaps they would have a chance to get it this time. However, this place was full of divine inscriptions, so it was not convenient to move. Sometimes, powerful attacks would appear. Geoffrey came relatively late. He saw the sealed weapons in the air at a glance, so he immediately put away his golden bell. Then, he saw Zichen, and his eyes surged with killing intent. Die! He struck out a palm across the air, and a powerful palm print went straight for Zichen, mighty and mighty. Chi! 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 The surrounding divine inscriptions were immediately triggered, and powerful attacks appeared, disintegrating the divine inscriptions in an instant. Even the other divine inscriptions in the surroundings had some chain reactions. Some people were affected and cried out in alarm. Zichen turned and saw Geoffrey. His eyes turned cold. Geoffrey, what is the meaning of this? Little bastard, I will kill you! Geoffrey's eyes were full of murderous intent. You deserve it! Zichen did not back down. Didn't you want to watch a show? Didn't you pretend you didn't hear my warning? Now that your brother is dead, you still want to watch a show? You are courting death! Geoffrey struck again across the air. Powerful energy surged, but it still did not reach Zichen. Those in the trial realm who were affected were angry, but they did not dare to say anything. This golden light seems to be able to increase the power of the physical body, someone exclaimed. Someone had obtained a ray of golden light and was trying to refine it. This exclamation attracted everyone's attention, including Geoffrey. When he saw the golden light, his expression could not help but change. This is the power of the golden body? He stared at the golden light, somewhat in disbelief. What is the power of the golden light? The young man under the golden bell asked. The power condensed by the immortal golden body is a powerful body refining technique from the immortal spell world. Chapter 49-20. Geoffrey's voice was not soft, but no one gave him power. He had just arrived here and had not gained anything yet. Regardless of whether the power of the golden body was strong or weak, these golden lights were obtained through hard work. How could they give them away so easily? Seeing that no one cooperated with him, Geoffrey was angry. Yes, I just refined it. It can indeed increase my power, said a high-level cultivator of the trial. Geoffrey was furious and looked at him. I'll kill you first. The other party looked at Geoffrey with astonishment and bewilderment in his eyes. He had only cooperated with Geoffrey, and he had actually brought about a fatal disaster. The young man on the side said, So if you get the power here, you can have the immortal golden body you mentioned? Geoffrey did not want to speak at this moment because no one knew what was good for them. However, the young man's identity was a little different. He snorted and said, "How can it be that simple? The immortal golden body is powerful because of the technique. This is just the power of the immortal golden body." Geoffrey paused and continued, "Although I can't cultivate the immortal golden body, the power here can make my physical body stronger. The more the better. Maybe it can be comparable to the immortal golden body in the end." As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes lit up. There were many golden light spots here. Although they were only the size of rice grains, as long as there were more of them, the physical body would naturally become stronger. Zichen also heard this and tried to refine a ray of golden light. The golden light turned into pure power and entered his body. It began to strengthen his physical body on its own. Zichen's physical body was not weak, but now he had completely absorbed this golden power. It was clear that compared to the power of the golden body, his physical strength was still somewhat lacking. He looked forward. This place was full of golden light, but divine patterns were everywhere. It was not easy to get them. "What's the situation now?" After Geoffrey finished talking about the immortal golden body, he looked at the young man and asked, "There's something strange about this place. It can take away the golden bells, and the original divine ability to break patterns will be suppressed," said the young man. Geoffrey looked up at the young man's head. The huge golden bell was rippling there. Layers of energy entangled like a spider web, sealing all power. Greed flashed in his eyes, and his gaze swept to other places. The other 3 golden bells were also there. Finally, his gaze landed on Zichen. He saw the Taoist sword, which should be the supreme treasure that Pieser had mentioned before. "There's something strange about that sword. It can also ignore divine inscriptions. Even my unique golden bell is unable to suppress it," the young man said again. He had noticed the greed in Geoffrey's eyes. Now, he could only direct the fire to Zichen. The young man's golden bell was very strange. It could be considered the strongest of the 5 great golden bells. It could instantly separate a person's flesh and bone. Since that sword could suppress it, it was clearly a good item. Geoffrey's eyes were attracted, and this time he was no longer suppressing his greed. He walked forward. Without Jin Zhong being trapped, there was no restriction. Zichen's expression changed slightly. That guy was walking toward him. "Brat, if you want to live, then leave your sword behind and scram." Geoffrey, who was walking forward, had a playful look in his eyes. "I'm warning you, don't provoke me," Zichen replied. Geoffrey's expression immediately turned cold. He thought of Geoffrey Ang, who had been killed not long ago. Zichen's words had undoubtedly provoked him. "I've changed my mind. You must die. I'm going to detain your soul and watch as I grind your body into ashes with your own eyes. Then I'll turn your soul into a sky lantern and slowly extinguish it." Geoffrey's words were filled with killing intent. "Come, I'll wait for you." Zichen faced him coldly without fear. "Your brother hasn't gone far. He's waiting for you 2 brothers to reunite. You're courting death." Geoffrey flew into a rage. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. His entire body was like a sharp sword as he charged toward Zichen. Buzz! The divine inscriptions in the surroundings were activated, and a powerful aura surged. Layer after layer of divine inscriptions appeared. The light that Geoffrey had transformed into broke through 2 divine inscriptions in succession, but he was trapped by the 3rd one. Without the invincible golden bell, this place was full of danger. How could it be so easy to pass through? Geoffrey, who was trapped in the divine inscription array, looked at Zichen from afar. "Just you wait, I'll definitely kill you. Come if you can. If not, scram." Zichen looked up at the sky. The divine inscriptions there were loosening. A cobweb-like power spread out, and the path sword fell from the sky. Time was up. Zichen put away the path sword and turned to walk deeper into the divine inscription array. His body twisted and turned, sometimes forward and sometimes backward. He was getting farther and farther away from everyone, but closer and closer to the golden light. Buzz! Once again, Zichen obtained a ray of golden light. He directly refined it. Now, he could only fight to the death with Jeffrey. Therefore, every bit of strength he gained was a guarantee for him. Under everyone's gaze, Zichen walked and stopped. He even went back and forth. Actually, this was an illusion. His footsteps never stopped, and he kept moving forward. Along the way, he would casually take away and refine the golden light he encountered. If it was just a little further, he would give up. In Zichen's vision, the golden light spots ahead were denser, and there were more of them. Therefore, there was no need to waste too much time on those in the periphery. Zichen guessed that the power of the immortal golden body didn't appear for no reason. Perhaps there was an unexpected harvest inside. After moving forward at full speed, Zichen widened the distance between him and the others. During this time, Jeffrey roared and used the strength of a Heaven's Choice round to break through the divine inscription array. However, he only sank deeper and deeper. Finally, Zichen reached the edge of the square. With the immortal spiritual eye, he walked much faster than the others. In front of the square was a large hall. The door was open, and a skeleton sat cross-legged in front of the door. The skeleton flickered with golden light. At this moment, there was a constant stream of air surging out of the hall with great power. Wherever it passed, it would take away some golden light spots from the skeleton and fly outside. That's the immortal golden body? Zichen looked at the golden skeleton with a hint of surprise in his eyes. His eyes flashed as he walked forward quickly. There were very few divine inscriptions here, but according to Zichen's investigation, it wasn't that they didn't exist. They had been removed many years ago. He walked to the front of the golden skeleton and suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill. It was as if someone was using a weapon to cut his body. The chill came from the open door. It was just a gust of wind, but it was so powerful. What was inside? Zichen was extremely shocked. Even standing behind the skeleton, he felt an unbearable stab of pain. Whoosh! Whoosh! There were some small cuts on his robe. His skin seemed to have been cut by a sharp blade, and traces of blood flowed out. It was obviously impossible to move forward and enter the hall. Fortunately, Zichen didn't have such thoughts, because there was a small pool of golden liquid beside the skeleton. This was the purest power of the immortal golden body, the part that was truly immortal. Just by sensing it, he found that this power was much purer than the one floating outside. Because the hurricane blew past, it took away the remaining power, leaving behind pure drops. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.